Regular school board meeting of September 28th to order. We'll begin with roll call.
Charles Black Lambs,
Here.
Reed Campbell,
Here.
Tom Hagelin,
Here.
Sue Kern,
Here.
Ruth Nelson,
Here.
Bob Nystrom,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, welcome everybody, and welcome to those that are joining us remotely, but also in person, waiting in our hallways here. Thank you for joining us this evening. And as we have been doing for the last several months, we'll continue with our virtual school board meetings per our governor's direction. We'll begin with the approval of our agenda as amended. So we did add item number 7, which is discussion of the athletics and activities later on in our meeting.
I would so move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Director Kern, second by Director Blacklands for approval of the agenda as amended. Any other discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion accepted. Next up will be our public input, and just as a reminder that we do allow up to 3 minutes discussion. It's a great opportunity for our community to present to the board any concerns, questions, thanks, anything that they might want to share. Of course, if there is anything that has to do with staff members, students, that will be dismissed right away, and we don't partake in discussion. But it's a good listening opportunity for us. So we'll begin with public input for. Welcome.
Welcome.
Are you all speaking together? Is that
Yes.
okay?
Yes. One person speaking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like, yeah, we have you sit up by the mic. You can sit in your chair, just so we can hear you.
Okay, I wrote it up because I go off on tangents, so I wanted to make sure I said everything I wanted to say. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, yep, good, thank you.
Okay. Hello, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Christy Duff, and I have 2 boys in the, Brainerd School District, a senior and a sophomore. They're both soccer players, which is why I'm here tonight. Our entire family has been very active in the soccer community since the boys were little. My husband, John, is the coach. I'm a LASA board member and an over-volunteerer for everything. Since this pandemic started, they had their, you all know LASA's, Lake Surrey's Soccer Association spring season was canceled. So this was my senior's last year, so he won't be allowed to play. As for school soccer, we waited patiently to finally hear on August 4th that they could indeed play fall sports. There would be 20% less weeks, 30% less games, and limited to 2 games per week. This also meant playoff sections and state competitions were to be determined. We also weren't sure if fans could attend. All of our players, coaches, families, and fans have followed every rule and played safe soccer for over 6 weeks. After not knowing if they would have a fall season, the team started tryouts on August 17th and we have been creative fundraising, selling masks and gaiters to help both players but also parents, fans be safe in the community while watching games. The players have a gaiter or a mask on their arm during all practices so they can be easily placed on their faces when in close proximity of one another. With all this being said, they practiced, rode buses, played games, etc., all while being safe without incident. If there was a player that did have symptoms, they were required to have a test and not able to return until they had a negative test and no symptoms. And we even rented out the Northland Arboretum to host our all-teams dinner so all players could be properly socially distanced. And Brainerd soccer isn't the sport that fills the stands to capacity, but we parents love to watch our kids play. And we parents and fans have been following social distance rules both in and out of the stands. We were allowed 250 people in the stands, and we followed all the rules. We want our kids to continue to play, especially our seniors. They've already lost so much and had so much taken away. Prom, events last spring, and now this fall. Not being in class with their friends, not playing sports with their friends, who knows what else. Our 12 senior soccer players have been so committed to following the rules so they could play this season because they knew every game could be their last. They were just told on Monday that they would be allowed to compete in playoffs starting October 12th and the possibility of going to state. Their current record is 7-0-1, and they were excited to be able to continue to play and that they had a good chance to advance. To hear that the very next day that their season could be over due to a cluster that was risking everyone was devastating. We started a petition with these thoughts, and we have over 500 supporters who have signed the petition. Many great comments were made regarding the team, along with statistics. We understand moving to complete distance learning to reset the safety of the school, but canceling all outdoor sports is unreasonable. These kids have proven that they can play safe outside, and we're asking that you let them to continue to safely practice and play games starting today, not in 2 weeks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Christy. Thank you. And that it is an agenda item for us later on in the meeting.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Hello.
Hello. My name is Tim Yeager, father to a 7th grader at Forest View, as well as a 9th grader. Sure. As well as a 9th grader at the high school, looking to enjoy his freshman year. I want to thank the board for their time this morning, and I also want to especially thank the members that did respond to my email. I know it was maybe a tad harsh with a little bit of anger that was initiated that day, but the people that did respond, I want to thank you especially. I have 2 items I'd like to discuss today. First being questioning the reasons why we needed time to prepare after the school was shut down last week. We've had 6 months to prepare for this contingency. I don't understand why, when there's already an online option, people doing full-time option, why there was a delay and our kids were not in school, even for that 2 days that they're learning. Our children's education is suffering. We as a community are failing them on their education. I understand the fear related to COVID, and I understand there was options given for those families for online learning. Where are my options to have my children in school full-time? We are talking about a disease that is not a good thing. Minnesota has had 96,734 cases of COVID as of September 25th, with 2,008 deaths. That is a 2% death rate. More people died of pediatric cancer, our children, last year than will affect COVID this entire time. School-age children less than 19 years old, to date, we've had 1 death. 1. And that child had an unknown comorbidity, not listed in the statistics. The median age of death for this disease is 83 years old. It is not affecting our children. I understand wanting to protect our family members, and that is on me as a family to protect the people most vulnerable. I just want to point out, I don't understand what we're doing here. We're not helping these kids. My 9th grader states fully he has learned nothing since March. He is trying his best. He is not an online learner. How can a teacher teach when they can't see the look in their eyes to know if they understand? How can they not do it with a mask on when they can't see their facial expressions? I've studied air filtration for over 30 years. I'd love to have a discussion with any one of you about these things we're wearing on our face. If anyone wants to, please follow up. I've been doing it for 30 years. It is my specialty. We need to get our kids back in school, whatever it takes. I understand we're working with state mandates. I'd have a discussion about the constitutionality of those, what determines a health emergency when we're talking a 2% death rate, why we're all being treated like this. I don't have the answers to that. I hope that Mr. Walls answers to that in the next election cycle. I know I will do everything I can to make that happen. I'm asking you as the board to do everything within your power to get my kids back in school. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for the phone call last week, too.
Thank you very much for responding. To the few that did, I very much appreciate it. I apologize for the tone, but it was news that did not come as a pleasant surprise. So, thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Tim.
Tim.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. First, I would like to thank you for your time. My name is Brent Yannick, and I have a few topics and concerns that I would like to be heard. First, the survey that was sent out with regards of how parents would like to see school start, I feel was a great idea. I am curious as to what the results of that survey are and if they are represented in the ways that schools are going. I'm struggling to find the minutes of the past meetings as well. All I've seen is June 8th of 2020 as the most recent date on the district website. This is my first meeting I am attending, and that is on me, but I'm here now. Recently, I got the results sent out to me in an email. I appreciate that, but I'm also frustrated because it doesn't appear that the community was represented in how they felt this should go. So with that, it runs into my second issue of communications. Many parents were asked to decide distance or in school, drop off, bus pickup, far before actual decisions were made on how or what time these things can be done. I know it changes fast, and you can tell with email errors and resends that it was a challenge. I know of concerns from parents that have a fifth grader that sits in a cafeteria on the computer one day and as a teacher the next, when it was said it was going to be in school every day. I know for me personally, we're not going to make a decision until the busing was figured out, and I've heard that is still an issue. I feel plans should have been made with the goal of saying that they could change the next minute because of a new issue, but it just seemed like it was a we have no idea what is going on and are scared to do the wrong thing. Third, last week was an incident with a hat and a student. The teacher had said it should not be wearing something that is something he did not know about. I'm not sure if wearing a hat is a rule in this situation, but it shouldn't matter what is on it either way. Fourth, my next concern is with high school sports being allowed in the state now. I know of programs that were ready before this had happened, but were unable to use public facilities due to the district being closed to all outside entities. Now with the school being shut down for 2 weeks and no school sports taking place, I've heard of coaches telling their athletes to practice, and I assume with the school closed, it would have to be at a YMCA type place. Seems odd to me. So with sports being allowed in the state and all the close contact that comes with it, I feel school should be back to every day, all day, and there should be far less contact than in any other sport. Lastly, for me, that leads into the toughest issue that I feel we face. What is the ultimate goal of public education for my child? With my children going full distance learning and no end in sight for the current issue, do you see parents saying that I want to always do distance learning? I've been asking my children if they feel they are learning more or less than they would have in school. They feel it has the same effect. But for me, just last Friday, both my kids were done early in the AM hours with some classes having no assignments. I was also frustrated to hear at 9/11, neither of my children said that their teachers had acknowledged the significance of that day. In my view, school is a system that helps to prepare children the best we can for the world that is in front of them when they become an adult. It seems to me that all it is now is a set of standards and a number of credits to get you a piece of paper, and without the social part of school, I'm not sure you could argue it. In closing, I'm a concerned parent, and not one of these issues is a yes or no answer. I know the job you have is not an easy one, and I'm not trying to make it harder. Like everything we do, we can always improve, and that is why I'm bringing these issues up. These are not just my concerns, but others around me as well. I look forward to any comments, questions, and discussion that come from this. I know you can't discuss these at this time, but I have my information on the sheet if you'd like to respond.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
What was your
Thank
name
you.
again? Your
I do
name?
have copies if anybody wants this.
Sure, why don't you leave them with us? Yeah.
I'll take one, pass it down.
And thank your uncle for giving me a call too today.
What's that?
Thank your uncle for giving me a call today.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dale Kublin. I know most of you. For those of you who don't know me, this is who I am. Worked in the Brainerd community with students full-time for the last 35 years. And during that time, for the last 25 years, our ministry, which has been known as Bay Ministries, 2 years ago we switched it to Youth for Christ, we've been utilizing the Tornstrom Auditorium. In those 25 years, we've used it approximately 125 times, everything from concerts to rallies to seminars to you name it. It's worked out great. We've been blessed with a wonderful relationship, and up to this point, it's just been the $72 and then a little extra for the custodian. I was contacted by Corey, and according to your agenda, it's number 3 tonight under the new business, that is being proposed to being raised from the $72 to the $420. Usually for us, we rented the auditorium for 2 days, which makes our total bill right around $250, a little more than that. And this would raise it with the custodial bill and everything else to about $1,200, $1,300. That would make it so that we cannot use it, and just because of the dollar figure that we couldn't do it. So I'm just asking that you would consider that, and if you have any questions, by all means, give me a shout, and we'll do what we can. Okay, thanks for your hard work, appreciate it. You are
Thank you,
much
Dale.
appreciated.
Thanks for
you.
coming in and sharing with everyone. And as you mentioned, we're going to discuss that later today, so
Sounds good.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale.
I'm smiling.
Thanks, Dale. All right, anybody else?
We got 2 more.
Two more. I heard the smile, so I think it was like a smile.
You can always see that one.
All right. Thanks for having me tonight. My name is Wade Hoppajoki, and I'm here. Can you hear me okay with the mask? Okay. I'm here representing the Brainerd Basketball Association and the Brainerd Youth Athletic Association, as I am members on both those boards. We've been in discussion the last 2 weeks on planning for the upcoming season, and at our last meeting, we prepared a letter I had sent last week, and I'm going to read that tonight. School Board members, Superintendent Larson. The Brainerd Basketball Association, BBA, which has 15 board members, and the Brainerd Youth Athletic Association, which has 9 members, are very thankful for the partnership established over the last 40 years as it relates to the use of district facilities to support basketball programs for Brainerd Public School District students. These 2 associations were started to help to support the district and community needs starting back in 1982 for BYA basketball and football, which now encompasses 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. In 1997, for the middle school travel basketball, Brainerd Basketball Association stepped in. Annually, over 400 girls and boys in kindergarten through 12th grade are supported by these 2 organizations and represent the Brainerd-Baxter area throughout the state of Minnesota. Sorry, the mask. In partnership, the BBA and BYA have been in discussion with the school district in regards to scheduling facility usage for this season. After discussions with other community associations throughout the state and how they are working with their respective school districts to procure facility usage, we presented 3 options to help the school district overcome the hurdles set by the Minnesota Department of Education Safe Learning Plan and allow limited use of district facilities for our youth programs. The 3 options we presented, we have current district custodial staff train our designated BYAA and BBA volunteers on what and how to clean after each facility usage. So there are other staff members who have worked in the summer custodial stuff, and possibly they could pick up, and we would pick up the cost. Second, we pay any district overtime to already hired custodial staff who want to pick up extra hours, and the funds again be provided by BBA or BYAA. Third, we pay a contracted commercial cleaning service to perform the cleaning of any facilities we use. All 3 options were rejected. We are disappointed in the decision to not allow our organizations any facility usage. This despite the attempt by our organizations to follow guidance given by the state of Minnesota on how facilities could be used safely at this time and not put undue pressure on our school district, our partner. We understand the current situation and directive for no facility use as it relates to COVID-19, and we want all parties to be safe. We also understand things can change week by week, day by day, and are committed to being flexible with future directives. Both associations were told to use Franklin School, which is currently not a district facility. This presents a big concern for both associations for multiple reasons. This facility is outdated with floors that have not been taken care of up to standards of the district's facilities, and provide a safe setting for our children. This facility is a mixed-use property with both businesses and apartments and wouldn't work for our COVID plan for parents to drop kids off and not come into practice. Both associations feel the use of Forest View Middle School Fieldhouse facility is the safest and most financially viable option for our associations and for the youth of our community. It has separate access from the school building, space to perform health checks of participants, and has adequate space inside for social distancing. The use of facilities has been crucial to the success of our association, and without access to these facilities, it threatens not only opportunities for our children not provided by the district, but future existence of all programs for Brainerd basketball. We appreciate you keeping a seat open at the table when discussions resume, and we look forward to being a partner in the planning of this season. We still believe there will be a season. We will keep our offer on the table to provide funding for cleaning and staffing as a way to support the district when we can transition to use facilities again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wade.
Could I ask Wade a question? Wade, are you looking for one facility primarily that you could run your program in? Like Forest View?
Well, here's, I don't know if can I still speak freely then? Here's our dilemma, is in order for our kids to play in tournaments and all around, we have to be associated with an association. We have to hold tryouts. We have to have a process. There's bylaws that we have to follow. If we don't follow those, we're considered a renegade, and nobody will let our teams play in tournaments, and that's the problem we're running into.
Okay.
So yes, we're looking for, we gotta hold a tryout, which is 4 hours, 1 hour for each grade. I mean, it's
And when does that start again? I know.
October 25th was our plan.
Okay.
And then Wade, I heard from one of the board members from BBA that Franklin is also unsafe because there's homeless people that occasionally get in. And some of the kids have actually seen a homeless person in a bathroom.
Yeah, we can't support it. It's just unacceptable. But I get, talking to Director Reynolds, that's the option that she had, and totally
Okay.
respect that in that conversation. But that's not okay for our children or anybody's children.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thanks, Wade.
Thanks, Wade.
Thank you.
Hello.
I gotta take it off to breathe.
We know this guy.
Yeah. Say when.
Yeah.
Anyway, I shortened this up a little bit. I had a conversation, I'm just gonna read this off here. I had a conversation with a black family who called me and was beyond alarmed at the attacks on my wife and myself. She stated, "You two are the least racist people we know and would help anybody anytime regardless of color, religion, or even LGBT or Q." She always puts a Q in there, I don't know why she does that. She says, I asked her if she knew why we were not racist. I told her there was not one reason, or there was only one reason, not two, not three, not four, just one. So this week we learned that now we're racist because Sue leaned on a wall while being photographed with the school board, and her hand slipped and she made the okay sign. I guess that's considered now racist as of last year, which how are we supposed to know? There was a wise man that once said, "Judge men on the content of their character, not the color of their skin." And he was a hero to many, including myself. If he were alive today, he probably would have added "or their hand gesture." Amazingly ridiculous how some people say a hand gesture that we have used as a symbol of "I got it" or "okay" is forever now racist. It's a racist symbol. I don't know who these people are, where they come from, but they can't be from Minnesota. But here we are looking at anything to discredit anyone who disagrees with you. And anyway, as to the one reason that we choose not to be racist, me and Sue, we choose not to be racist. It's not that we have colored children, because we do. It's not that Black Lives Matter says we need to, because I firmly believe all lives matter, all lives. Like the song that I teach on Sunday, and I sing it regularly to the kids, "Red and yellow, black and white, they're precious in His sight." I sing that quite regular. That's a good song. Not because my mother was not a racist, even though she had 14 white children. I'm number 7 in that line. She taught us well not to be racist. She had white children because she was married to a white man. Not that the newspaper Newsweek says, because they only sell papers for the hype. Definitely not what it says on social media, because I really don't care, because people say a lot of stupid things with no information to back it. Not racist because anyone has ever told us it's wrong, and it definitely is. Our one reason we are not being racist, the one reason, someday I will stand before Jesus Christ, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, God Almighty, and I will give an account, and he ain't white. You know, talked with the lady today, explained to her, he's not white, so get over it. So it'll be just me and him, just Sue and him, and just you guys and him, one of us at a time. And what could I possibly say to him if I don't love people the way he loved them? Every other opinion is of little value, even though there is value to the opinions, but compared to his, they're little value. As in the end, we'll all give an account to the one for what we say and what we do, including the people who proliferate ignorance. They too will give an account. And that's black and white to me and my family, that they'll give an account just like we will. Elections do have consequences, and I would really recommend making your vote count where it matters. So each one of us need to elect and choose to know that someday we will stand or fall before an awesome Jesus Christ, because we will. And I just am so proud to be married to this school board member over here. And just, you know, if anybody who knows us knows better. And what people say, you know, they talk. Talk is cheap. But it's the content of their character is what you need to look at. So that's it. Thank you.
Good.
And
Thank
thanks
you,
for
John.
everything you guys do. It's just, I know you guys going through a lot. Everybody's going through a lot, but thank you for everything you do.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Doug, the Q is queer or questioning?
I'm sorry, what's that?
LGBTQ. The Q is queer or questioning is what the Q is for.
I have a hard time hearing.
The Q for LGBTQ is queer or questioning.
Yeah.
That's what it stands for.
But it's just a, you know, goofy day and age we live in. Really a goofy day and age we live in where, you know, everything is changing. The world's revolving and everything's changing. And it hasn't stopped, so,
Yep.
yeah. So anyway, thank you for everything.
Thanks,
you guys
Doug.
do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki.
Anyone else?
That was it.
That's it.
Public comment.
Okay, great. Well, thanks to all of those that did come and share. It's nice to have them back in public versus the old-fashioned vox pop way. Okay, next up will be approval of our minutes from our September 14th board meeting.
I so move approval of the September 14th minutes.
Second.
Ruth. Motion by Director Campbell, second by Director Nelson for approval of the September 4th board meeting minutes. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up is approval of our consent calendar.
I would so move to approve our consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Director Kern, second by Director Blacklands for approval of the consent calendar. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up will be some presentations, and we're going to start with inviting 6 school board candidates. We had two weeks ago, and there's 6 more. So they'll each come in and give us up to a 3-minute presentation. And just a reminder for our school board candidates and our board that this is not a Q&A time. It's just they're simply going to present, and Q&A comes next week on the 6th of October. So we'll begin. I guess we're going in alphabetical order. So we're going to start with Jacqueline.
You ready for it?
Yep. Yes.
I was calling him in the wrong order. It's my fault. We don't have one person.
So what order are we going in, Heidi?
We're gonna go with the order that's on your, on the overhead seat. So, but we don't see Jacqueline here, so Amanda's gonna start.
Oh, okay. All right. Hi, Amanda. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you.
And if you would want to take your mask off, because we will be recording and then it's going on our district website, you're more than welcome to, but it's up to you.
Yeah, it's probably much easier to hear me.
And there are
Without
wipes there
muffled.
if you want to wipe the mic. Before
Pardon?
you- There are wipes there if you want to
Oh,
wipe the mic
okay.
before you speak.
Sounds good, thank
And,
you.
and we can
Yeah.
hear you fine. So, yeah.
Okay, yes, as long as you can hear me. Okay. So I'm Amanda Sosensky-Kahn, and I would like to begin by thanking our district superintendent, representatives of her office, and the school board for allowing me this opportunity to introduce myself. I know the value of public education and what schools can do for their students. Growing up, school was a very special place for me. I'm one of 3 children to a single mother who worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. And when I was in elementary school, our apartment flooded, so we lost everything. And school is where I felt safe, and it's where I felt connected. And so my teachers provided me with the tools I needed to build resilience, and they fostered in me a love of learning that I carry to this day. So I'm forever grateful that I was afforded a curriculum that challenged, engaged, and prepared me for school and life beyond. And I believe every student deserves this. I, like many voters, am a working parent. I'm a wife and a mother to 3 young Brainerd warriors, and it's true you can find me most mornings at the Baxter Elementary drop-off line. Every morning. My husband and I chose the Brainerd Lakes area to raise our family. We were so committed to raising our family in the Brainerd area that my husband, Aaron, signed a contract with Essentia Health, St. Joseph's Medical Center, almost 2 years before we ended up moving here. We are invested in this community, and we're also delighted to call it home. Prior to announcing my candidacy for election to the Brainerd School Board, I sought the advice from those who have served in this capacity, and what I determined is that I have the enthusiasm, family support, time, and experience to be a productive member of this board. I believe I am uniquely qualified to bring fresh and thoughtful ideas to the challenges our schools are facing right now. I have real concerns about our students' achievement during these COVID-19 classroom disruptions. I have taught in higher education for over a decade, and I am a recipient of a Golden Apple Teaching Award. As a seasoned post-secondary educator, I have developed in-person, hybrid, and online classes, and I know how much work is required to prepare engaging and meaningful content in these areas. Over 3 years ago, I transitioned from the classroom to online teaching when my family moved to the Brainerd area, and this allows me tremendous flexibility with my schedule. As an educator who has served on curriculum, cultural competency, and program evaluation committees, I am motivated and qualified to help the district reduce predicted COVID-19 achievement losses and proactively mitigate any achievement gap. As a public health professional and research methods instructor with a background in microbiology and community health, this gives me crucial experience for navigating COVID-19. I am comfortable reading, interpreting, and using scientific data to make informed decisions and safely keep schools open. I have experience leading community teams, conducting needs assessments, creating and evaluating programs based on objectives. I'm an active volunteer in my children's schools. I am dedicated to creating a robust curriculum that prepares students for school and life beyond school. I commit myself to find ways in which we can support educators and those that support them. I am empathetic, energetic, diplomatic, and engaged. As a working mother and wife, with the experience needed to see the district through these challenges, it is my hope that I have the opportunity to serve the community, students, and families of ISD as a member of the Brainerd Public School Board. And that's, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Next up, Director Kern, Sue.
Hi. I'll do that again at the end. I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to be able to speak before you, along with the other newer candidates. And I want to thank the opportunity now, because I have a microphone, to thank all of our staff and the administration, our paraprofessionals, the food service, the transportation department, the grounds people, for all of the work that they have had to do extra this year. I just thank you from the bottom of my heart. It has been my pleasure and privilege to serve on the Brainerd School Board for 8 years. I am humbly and grateful for this opportunity. I was brought up to believe that with a good education, you can do anything in your life. I find great value in the education of the next generation, and I care about kids. I want them to have a quality education. I want to see our kids be successful and to be thriving in their lives and their careers, and to be good citizens in our community. I would so appreciate the opportunity to serve on the school board again and see the building project to completion, seeing that the standards are met in each of our buildings and ensuring equality regardless of students' socioeconomic status. And we will do that with our schools. I have always given all my all to the administration, to my fellow board members, and I read the packets we get, every 2 weeks here. Now we're having meetings twice a month for every board meeting, and I do research behind the scenes more so than I do at the board table. And I do all of that research because I want to make the most informed decision possible for everybody. Brainerd is my hometown, and I'm mindful of the entire community when I make decisions. I was brought up with strong moral values and character and a strong work ethic, which makes me a great candidate as I am straightforward, honest, a conservative, and I maintain my conservative family values and culture. I'm a self-starter. I have never had to have my parents tell me to do my work, to clean my room. I've never had to have teachers tell me to get my stuff done. I just did it. On school board, we rotate through the positions, taking turns of being chair, vice chair, as all of you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I have been chair 2 times in 8 years, showing that I'm willing to step forward and to do the work when others, for whatever reason, were not able to do it. Sorry. I have the time to do school board. I have time to do all the work. I am fully committed. I'm a collaborative worker, and I work well with others. I bring 8 years of experience to the table. I'm the chair of the legislative committee, and I am in contact with our senator and House representatives. I have written the governor and called there, but I never hear back from him, sorry. I'm on the project oversight committee, benefits committee, and IEIC, which is one of my favorites because it's about early childhood. On a personal note, I was born and raised in Brainerd, a Brainerd High School graduate, and 3 of my 3 children are all Brainerd High School graduates. After high school, I attended the Brainerd Area Vocational Technical Institute, we called it the VOTEC, as a medical secretary. And in my 30s, I attended CLC and became a registered nurse. And I worked in both of those careers for years. My husband, Doug, and I are married and have been married for 25 years. And I help him with our 3 businesses. And I'm also a treasurer on my township board, which is also an elected position. In closing, I would like to read a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I'm kind of a geek and I keep quotes, so. It says, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." And so with that, I would appreciate your vote. My name is Sue Kern, and the election, November 3rd. And I don't want to go on and on because I don't like to.
Thank you, Sue.
Thanks, Sue.
Yeah.
And Next up,
Stage
I
right.
think we'll hear from Emily. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you.
And if it's up to you, but if you want to remove your mask, you can.
It's easier to breathe a little bit. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily LeClaire, and I am one of the candidates for ISD 181 School Board. I was born and raised in Brainerd, went to school here, and graduated in 2008. My older brother, 3 younger sisters, and as of this year, my eldest niece have all graduated from Brainerd High School. We all took different paths. One of my sisters, my brother, and myself took the most traditional path. 2 of my sisters graduated from AEC, and finally, my niece graduated from both CLC and BHS under the PSEO program. I am so truly thankful to our district and to everyone who has served our district, the teachers, the staff, the faculty, and of course, the school board, for for being so versatile and meeting the needs of my family. I myself have 4 children ranging in age from 10 to 2. I have been involved with TCC Head Start and Early Head Start for several years. The last 2 serving on the Parent Committee and the Policy Council. I served in the elected positions of Secretary and MHSA alternate this past year, and Secretary in the Parent Committee both this year and the year before. I am passionate beyond words about education and the impact it can have on all of our children and generations to come. I am also honored to be among so many worthy school board candidates, and my sincerest goal is to be able to serve my community that I so deeply love and to serve as an amplifier for those voices in our community that feel underheard. And I guess that's pretty much it.
Great. Well, thank you, Emily. Thank you for coming and sharing tonight.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. All right. Next, we will hear from Freedom. Hello and welcome.
Thank you for the welcome. My name is Freedom Porter.
And if you want to take the mask off, you can, but you don't have to. It's up to you.
I would love to take the mask off. Thanks for the welcome. My name is Freedom Porter. I am a resident of Baxter. I've lived in the area for 10 years. I have 2 amazing girls that attend Baxter Elementary, and as a parent, I thank you all very much for that amazing new school. We cannot say enough how grateful we all are. As I don't really have any prepared remarks, one of the things I've learned in my public speaking is that if I write everything down, then I tend to sound more robotic. But Charles' amazing wife, Catherine, was one of my instructors for public speaking, so I'm trying to use her wisdom as I talk to all of you tonight. One of the things I wanted to, what made me decide to run, was watching my kids play and their amazing imagination that they have. My youngest daughter, she is on the autism spectrum, and watching her run around the circles in our yard, up and down, it just, I could do it all day. I just get memorized by it. And she gets amazed by the most simplest things that the rest of us would probably just walk past. A butterfly will entertain her for hours. Or she'll find a stick and she'll find a way to give it a personality. And she'll talk to flowers. And she'll watch the sky and just stare. So I would like to see that for all kids, to help them to do my part as a school board member, to show them to wonder, for them to see the beauty in mathematics, the awe in science, the adventure in history, and the splendor of the arts. That is what I want to be a part of. And we can do that by celebrating our educators, our aides, our drivers, our amazing volunteers. We can celebrate their heroism that they do just by simply getting up and going to that school. On the first day of school at Baxter Elementary, I was one of the parents who got angry at the new pickup system. And after I picked up my daughters, I got home, and I felt ashamed of that. So I realized that that one person, she had probably taken so much heat throughout the day, and she stood there doing her job. She kept that smile, even though there was an angry parent in his car who just, and it was his own fault. I didn't read the letter. I didn't have my green card. So the person who I should have been upset with was me, not the amazing educational staff that was trying to direct us. That's what I mean by their heroism. It's amazing what they can do. I feel I can bring a unique perspective, as all of my professional experience lies in human services. I've worked with the homeless population in this community, especially the homeless youth, and it saddened me to see these kids who are forgotten. They would look at you with a sense of hopelessness, and they would try to laugh it off. They know how to get into Franklin. That's where they would go to get shelter. And these are kids who we, sadly enough, we just toss aside. We brush them off as a problem to our community that we want to hide. We blame the parents. We find other ways to be angry with them or to just be embarrassed of them when all they need is a chance. That's what I hope to bring that awareness. I've also worked with people struggling with drug addictions. I've worked with families who just can't get ahead, where the system just keeps knocking them down. And I've worked with teenage mothers who just struggle on the most simplest thing, where they can't put milk on their table. These are people that are all around us that we, sadly enough, we know it's there. We donate to charity on the holidays and we tell ourselves, good job. But they're there every day, and we can lift people up. We just need a smile. They just need to say good morning and not walk by them. The hope you can bring to anyone is wonderful. So you think of that, what these teachers do. I remember my teachers. They're amazing. I still remember all their names. And I think about your teachers here in Brainerd Public Schools. I worked with quite a few of them during my time at Lutheran Social Service. And you have an amazing staff. I can't give them enough credit. And then as a parent, as a father of a daughter on an autism spectrum, it's amazing programs. I would like to be a part of that. I want to end my day knowing that I made a difference. All of you make a difference. It's important. We just need to stay together and keep building our kids up. I hope to get some votes. It would be an honor to serve in my language, Chimagwich. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Freedom.
Thanks, Freedom.
Thank you for sharing. Next up is Jana. Hi, Jana.
Hi, I really didn't bring my own. Heidi asked me to bring these in.
And it's up to you, but if you want to remove your mask, you can.
Excellent. That would be helpful. Thank you. All right. Hi, everyone. Board members, Superintendent Larson, people who may be listening in from home tonight. I just wanted to take this time to introduce myself. I'm Jana Sjogren. I have lived in the Brainerd Lakes area for about 19 years. I moved back here 19 years ago, almost to the day. I was reflecting on that today with my husband, who was born and raised here in Brainerd. While I'm not from Brainerd, both of my children were born here, and so it really truly feels like home to us. They've received their entire education in ISD 181, starting at ECFE and going on through Riverside, Forest View, and now, believe it or not, I have 2 teenagers at Brainerd High School. It's hard to believe that. We've been really blessed by the exceptional system that we have here in Brainerd. My professional experience over the last 20 years has been focused on the needs of children and families. I started out 20 years ago in the elementary school setting, so I know a little bit about some things that are happening these days. I worked with children who have emotional and behavioral challenges. From there, I focused my career on community organizing at the Initiative Foundation, again, working on issues that matter in communities around children, youth, and families. More recently, I've been able to serve right here in Brainerd. I've been the director of two awesome organizations, one being Bridges of Hope and the other being the Central Lakes College Foundation. All of this experience has really given me a front row seat to see firsthand what the needs of our children and our families in our district are. I was first encouraged to run for school board over 10 years ago, and at that time I thought, well, what do I know? I haven't done enough yet. So I kind of practiced and learned and got involved in some things. More recently I thought, well, maybe when my kids graduate, then I'll have more time and then I could run for school board. And this summer, as I was reflecting on it more carefully, I thought, why not now? I think it's important. I have the perspective as a parent in the district, so I thought maybe now is the time for me to actually dig in and get more involved. My earliest involvement in the district was volunteering in my kids' classrooms at Riverside Elementary School. More recently, I was a member of the comprehensive facility planning team who planned, I think for about 18 months, we got together here at WESBA and planned for this awesome building project that we're in now. After that, I was hooked, and so I joined the Vote Yes committee and chaired the outreach team to help get out the vote for the April referendum in 2018. Through all this work, I feel especially connected to the building projects and would feel privileged to be able to serve on this board and be able to see those projects through to fruition. As a new board member, I would think it would be important to listen to others and learn about the needs of the district and learn about the priorities of our community. I'd work to strengthen communication toward the board and again from the board back out to the community. To garner the full support of those in our district, we need to share the successes and the opportunities, but we also need to let people know what our challenges are in the district. And right now, of course, we're facing a particularly challenging time with COVID-19, social unrest, and financial uncertainty facing many of the families in our district. I think it's a unique intersection of challenges for us to navigate, and it's critical that we work together to make a difference in the lives of our students. It's our responsibility to deliver a safe and equitable education. It's crucial that all of our students, employees, parents, and community members feel safe, valued, and welcome within our buildings and at our activities. I commend this board and all of our teachers and staff and administrators for the hard work and flexibility and the grace that you have demonstrated pressing forward to deliver education in these difficult times. I would welcome the chance to serve alongside you and navigate these challenges and eventually move forward. The world is asking a lot of our students right now, and they have been incredibly resilient. The world is asking a lot of our staff, our teachers, and they have just served with grace during this time. I think we need to acknowledge the stress and the fatigue this causes and express our gratitude and compassion to our teachers and our staff. After announcing my intention to run for school board, the most common question I hear is, what is your platform? And to that I say, well, I don't have a real flowery or lengthy platform by any means. I'm simply running for school board because I've lived in this community for 19 years and I care a great deal. My family has benefited from excellent opportunities in this district. And when you've received so much, I believe you should give back where you can. I'm running for school board because I care about children and families, and I believe my professional experience can lend a voice to the needs of families in our district. I've worked hard to develop partnerships and collaborations, and after running nonprofits for a few years, I know how to stretch a tight budget to deliver strong outcomes. So I guess my platform is simple. I care deeply about the needs of children and families, and I'm ready to lend my time, my effort, and my expertise to make this the best district it can be. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jana. Good luck to you. Well, that was fun, and as Superintendent Larson whispered to me earlier, that we really have a great slate of candidates, none which will likely rise to replace Mr. Campbell, but
Is irreplaceable.
yes. But yeah, what a great slate of candidates. How fortunate we are as a district. Charles.
Chair Hagelin, just a quick question. And I can use this newbie card maybe for a few more months.
It's about over.
It's just about expired. Yeah.
But in all seriousness, I think the board candidates that we have, just like you said, I'd like to second that. I think we have some strong candidates. It's fun to see. my question, I'll get to the point, is do we have a process for individuals just like myself in previous years where we could get some experience within the school district that could, in a sense, prepare them, or even be a feeder system, if you will, to potential board candidate status at some point. For individuals that might want to think they might want to dip their toe into the waters of the school district, but to give them an experience, and maybe in certain areas that they might be interested, but also be able to capitalize on their talent along the way. Just a parking lot thought moving forward.
It's a great thought, yeah. It's I think there's certainly opportunities for community members to get involved with the district, but it's a great thought. Maybe there's a more formal way of finding a better, not a better solution, but an opportunity. Yeah, I like that. Good, thank you. Okay, we will move into our new business, and we'll begin with Blueprint 181 update. We have Damien and Scott with us tonight.
Are you wishing you had coffee right now?
A little bit. When I do this, I feel like everybody else did.
Fishing the trails.
I'm just finding my second gear now.
All right, so we'll give our update here on the bond improvements projects. We have 3 items on our agenda. Project updates. High school, we're going to review PR number 25 changes. Then also we're going to review the South Campus Design Development Review. So with that, I get to give it to Scott.
All right, Brainerd High School project update. With the recent change, we have had the ability to get in and knock out some punch list items there. So that's we've been capitalizing on that time. Get in, close out a lot of those punch list items. Area 2, we're continuing exterior finishes. We just about have all the metal wall panels up on the new construction. That should be wrapping up here any day. The Performing Arts Center, we're pouring a bunch of concrete inside the auditorium itself and getting our electrical rough-ins completed in the ceiling. Area 10, the pool excavation has been ongoing. We are down to the pool deck height. We're in like 2/3 of the excavation zone, and we're going to start digging our footings. Interestingly enough, we found an old dump site like 16 feet below the surface, so that was very interesting. Director Nystrom, I have a whole bunch of bottles that I found that you might be interested in.
Love to see them.
Yeah. And then Area 5 and 6, we're continuing where the Jack and Boar was to make progress towards turning that connecting link over the MEA weekend. Any questions on the update? Hearing
Just
none?
a question maybe.
Oh, yes, sir.
Now the weather's going to start to be a factor, so when does the frost, how long can you work before the frost becomes a major issue?
Well, if we put down ground thaw blankets and all that stuff, it's not. It won't be an issue. So we'll protect the soils and put concrete blanket down and all throughout the year. Interesting enough, all the work that we started in the center courtyard in April this spring, we covered up the fall before, and it was still thawed ground underneath it. So those blankets work really, really well. And we'll be utilizing that again this year. So.
Scott, I'm sorry I missed the tour, but what's that picture, the first picture there up on the left?
Top picture on the left, so that's tying in. When we expanded the size of the orchestra pit, we had to kind of put a halt on the footings and foundations that were going in there until we got all that approved. So we keyed in the existing wall so we could come back and tie into it at a later date. So what you're looking towards the kind of center third of that picture is the rigging pit, which sits below the stage. That's where all of our counterweights will be. And then that little doorway looking thing on the bottom is the doorway into the stair tower, which is how they'll get down into the orchestra pit. That's where the elevator lift is, and that's where the stairwell goes up into the lighting tower and how you get up to the front row of the catwalk system.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
How about the guy with the Geiger counter?
Yeah, installing our quartz countertops on the a la carte line. Okay. Yep, and then the balcony pour there, we're continuing to pour steps up the rest of the balcony. So PR 25, which was included in your board book, there's a number of different things here. So front office reconfiguration, scrap collector, essentially change, grease interceptor, and auditorium. A couple of events related to the auditorium. The front office was reconfigured, and we changed the casework up and added some additional finishes in those areas. The scrap collector, because of the amount of work that was going on in the dish room, scrap collector is not allowed per the city of Brainerd. We can't discharge food into the waste stream, so we had to change out and put in a scrap essentially collector. It collects it, they pull it out before it goes into the waste area there. The grease interceptor, our indication was that it was much further north than what it actually ended up being. We ended up taking out a pretty sizable chunk of the hill in order to get to that existing line to tie in and put the actual grease interceptor tanks in, and that required us to dig up a pretty good portion of blacktop in order to put this in as well. In your packet, you'll see there's two prices that aren't approved yet, and we're still working out through some of the details of those. And one contractor failed to submit their pricing, and they were giving more than adequate time to do so, so that was $0 for them as well. But in the board action tonight, it is not to exceed the amount of $227,625.91. And the hopes is once we get through these two no's on here that we're able to get that dollar amount down. Mr. Hagelin, you asked me to explain the acoustical clouds in the auditorium at oversight. So one of the items in high-tech's scope of work there is an acoustical cloud system. In the building elevation views, it gives us a cloud underneath the catwalks. So off the proscenium face, we have an acoustic deflector, and then beyond that, you have acoustical clouds, which then deflect the sound back down into the audience. It says to see reflective ceiling plan. Our reflective ceiling plan doesn't show how these are constructed. So that change, about $70,000, that change is to clarify how those are built, as there wasn't anything called out, it wasn't a spec, it wasn't a schedule, and the diagram didn't adequately show how these were to be constructed. It's our recommendation that well, not recommendation, but it would have been impossible for them to bid at that time. So that's where that cost is coming from.
So that's how much, 70,000?
It's just shy of 70,000, 67,000.
So likely would have been in the bid. I mean, the bid would have likely been higher had that been called out. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Questions from anyone else?
No. Hear none.
I'll move the approval of PR 25, not to exceed $227,625.91.
Second. Were we supposed to do that, or? Oh, okay.
Motion by Director Nelson, second by Director Nystrom for approval of PR number 25 as presented. Any discussion, further discussion? Not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up will be the design development of South Campus.
Let me pull this up. All right, so we updated some renderings.
Do you see any changes in it?
Yeah, and that was based off
We've got our way, huh?
off of oversight recommendations when we
good.
presented to oversight. So what you have in your board book, you should have the DD spec section and the print, the full DD sets of those were sent last week so everybody can review. What we have in front of you right now is the DD board book. Valerie, are you on tonight or available?
I am.
All right, so Valerie Peterson from Wald is joining us. Let me via Google Hangouts here, so correct me if I'm wrong as I work our way through. And your board book here, there's just some owner information, project budget. So as shown, we are sitting at $11,452,587.60. And that's for our remodel of about 71,914 square feet of the existing South Campus building. Our schedule, we're right on schedule with our DD process. We'll be finishing up our construction documents 12/14/2020. We will be looking to go out to bid in December here with a second week of January bid opening. Construction is slated to start 5/31 or June 1 of it just so happened that June 1 wasn't a Monday, so that Monday is 5/31 of 2021, and we'll wrap up August 1 of 2022. What we see here is what we have proposed. On the upper left-hand corner of the site plan here, circled in orange, you can see the section of the building that we're slating to demo. All together between the building, the ancillary buildings to the south, like the greenhouse, storage shed, the current Stars house, or is that Paul Bunyan Transition Plus? I forget. But the White House and the storage shed are also slated to be demolished in this process as well to make room for green space and playground space as well, totaling about just shy of 50,000 square feet of demolition. We have here an expanded parking lot and a bus drop-off lane for dropping off the new main entrance, which is highlighted in the red arrow. The existing portion, the existing entrance will be demolished in place of a dedicated Paul Bunyan Transition Plus and Stars entrance. And the LEC dedicated entrance would be on the south side of the parking lot as well. To the south of those, in the existing boiler house, is a dedicated building and grounds and transportation parking lot with direct access to building and grounds space, and a essentially a little storage facility here, which is affectionately known as pallet warehouse or pallet storage. I don't want it to. Moving on in the demo plan, this highlights the extent of the demolition. You can see the eastern side of the building, the greenhouse, and there's a couple little ancillary buildings in there that are going to be demolished as well to make way for those parking lots. We're removing the current vestibule, and then demolishing pretty high percentage of the interior partition walls. Got some computer lag going on here. Holy
Scott,
smokes.
this is a 2-summer project, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Will any of the facility be usable the second year or during the year at all, or? No?
It will be extremely difficult if we have the ability to move that programming to other schools. Right now, everything's fed from the side of the building that we're demolishing. So reestablishing those life safety systems will be timely and difficult and costly to do in order to have those functional during the school year.
Okay, thank you.
Computer is really jumping here, so I apologize. It's popping back and forth. But here in this layout, if the computer ever catches up, we have the administration in purple. We got the Paul Bunyan's Transition Plus in kind of the lighter blue. Come on. The Stars program in that lighter, well, I guess darker of the lighter blue. And then as we move south, here's kind of the line of separation between the two facilities. It was where we get into the high school wing for the Lincoln Education Center, the existing kitchen, recreation room. We got kind of a small eating cafe system, our administrative wing, reception, administrative offices, teacher work and break area, conference spaces. The LEC entrance you can see is highlighted here, as well as parent visitor main entrance, and then the dedicated Stars Paul Bunyan Transition Plus entrance on the north side. We will be reconfiguring the existing auto shop area and turning that into a gym to serve the entire school. And as we move south, we've got our care and treatment. Mental health is just on the north side, the Northern Pines. Over here we have our elementary wing. If the computer catches up. Holy cows. We have our middle school rooms, a couple of small breakout collaboration spaces, our seclusion rooms, I can't think of it's called. That's our game and maker space, and this is our production lab. You'll notice that all the bathrooms are single stall co-ed bathrooms, and they're kind of located throughout the facility. And then we've got our dedicated district transportation side of the building. Any questions on that? Gonna keep moving on. Here is kind of the overall, very similar to what we just looked at and explained. Here's our front admin our access. This demonstrates how we comply with the safe, the fishbowl concept. So our Paul Bunyan Transition Plus doors, main entrance, and our LEC dedicated doors would remain open prior to the school day, locked at first bell. Our front access door here would be remain open and allow visitors to come in. They can request access at the north side of the reception desk here. Access would be granted by the receptionist once they come in, validate their reason for being there and that they're able to be allowed into the building. They'd then be released into the portion of the school on the south side here. All other doors are controlled by ProxGuard. Here we have a reflective ceiling plan. We do have some soffits planned throughout to kind of break up, change elevation heights, and make room for mechanical spaces. Much of the existing building, because that was the Voc College, correct, back in the day, is precast stone. That's this color here. You'll see on the next slide in our exterior rendering that we're introducing some metal panels as well as a wood accent and canopies to really make this main entrance kind of a beautiful place for people to go to. We did soften up that front awning. We added some wood elements into the LEC awning. Trellis design coming off the north, Paul Bunyan Transition Plus, and the STARS program entrance, as well as an additional awning with some added green space into the mix and planters along the building. Did I miss anything, Valerie?
Bob, did you have something?
Yeah, Scott, it looks like there's a building behind LEC. Is that the high school?
Nope, that's the rest of the building.
Oh.
It continues to go north. Right here, if you can see where my mouse is, would have been where the that red roofed existing main entrance is.
Oh, okay.
So the building continues to go north from that point. So that's just the backside of the building.
Scott, in the original photo, you had an orange line. It looked like the orange line actually went over the hill towards College Drive. Is fill going to be added to expand the footprint?
Nope. That College Drive, that is a state aid road. And so we can't really go any further to the east. We're at our furthest most boundary as it is, going east and south.
And the staff is good with the amount of play area and green space that they have?
We're actually going to meet on Wednesday to explore options to increase the amount of green space. Obviously with the footprint being as it is on the hill and at the edge of a pretty steep drop off, we're working within some pretty strict confines, but we are taking active measures to try to increase the amount of green space that we have.
What was the designated area for district transportation, and what is that for?
Building and ground district transportation. So there's approximately 24 district transportation vehicles, most of which serve the LEC, Paul Bunyan Transition Plus, and the STARS program. So we need to have a place to house those vehicles. Currently they're housed at South Campus, and it's just not a very productive space for them. So reconfiguring that lot to get all those allocated, dedicated vehicles, I should say, into there is what's in the design.
No, I like how it looks a lot better. I still think I would like to see some live green at the front somewhere, but I don't know if that's doable. It seems like it's very narrow sidewalk in there. I don't. If we could get rid of just a little bit of that parking lot and add a little bit of green, I would
Yep,
still.
and we
like
will
to
have
see
some
that.
islands throughout the parking lot itself,
Okay.
with
Yeah,
trees
just when you
and,
first come up.
and grass and things of that nature in there as well.
And I know we have.
We
to have
did
some-
add a little bit of plantings. They might be hard to see between the windows, but
Oh, okay.
There is.
Those are
Yep.
planters in there, in the front?
Just plantings along the side of the building.
Oh, there is,
And
okay.
those planters do contain
Okay.
plants.
I thought that was just shadows, so those are plants.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Valerie.
So what will we see from the high, or from the street, like roundabout on up to the north and east on College Drive there? What will we see looking up at the,
Retaining wall.
it'll be retaining wall?
Yeah, that's what you see currently. As you come around that lower, the kind of the College Drive roundabout, there's going to be no change to that, to those retaining walls there. That's what's limiting our bounds, and those are required for that.
I think
That's-
maybe.
Will we see
maybe
chain
what-
link fence there, or will we see a?
There will be fence around the district transportation vehicles. That was specifically requested because that is a pretty high dollar investment by the district. We need to keep those vehicles safe and secure. So there will be chain link fence around that
But you
portion.
won't see that when you drive into the school area.
No, you might see a little bit of it, probably very similar to what you see right now.
Okay.
Charles, when you're coming in, if you're coming down Quinn Street towards the stoplight, and you know, like you're going up in between the two schools right now, this is essentially the view you would have. So if you were to travel down College Drive, you would see as you're going around the corner of the school on this picture right here. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you'll see a little bit more, it'll be opened up obviously because the east half of the building will come down. You'll see the big parking lot, and you'll see the front facade of the building.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions, comments, concerns on what we've shown this evening?
Looks good.
That's good.
Yep.
Will it be pretty easy access from that parking lot during the off hours if there's a swim event or for gymnasium?
Absolutely. And that's part of the reasoning for the parking lot where it is because this parking lot will be utilized for swim meets and things of that nature. So you'll have a walk across to get to.
And it'll give us a lot of our handicap parking here
Correct.
because it's so much closer to the athletic wing than across Fifth Street.
Mhm.
And so that was part of the intent, because it was so close, is that we could have a lot of handicap parking so that our guests had easy access.
Yeah, just with grandparents that want to come.
Grandparents,
their
yeah,
grandchildren
correct.
compete, and- Yeah, great, thank you.
Absolutely.
I so move the approval of the design and development for South Campus Building at Brainerd High School.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Director Campbell, second by Director Kern for approval of the design development for South Campus as presented. Any further discussion? Not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is,
Thank
well,
you.
you guys maybe have some more.
A few more
updates.
slides, Tom.
Oh.
Nice try.
We've got
Right.
Scott taken over, so.
All right, New Baxter Elementary, we're working on the punch list, working on commissioning. Gym number 2, equipment is being installed this week, and then the flooring will be about middle of October. So things are going well. Nisswa Elementary, working on the east side site work, working on the punch list, and of course, working on commissioning of the HVAC.
Damien, how did we, what's the latest with the water issue on the east side?
Yeah, we're starting to work on the correction work to get that squared away.
Okay.
We do have some a temporary dike in place to take care of that water. So there's none of the water is going on the neighbors at this point right now. So, But our goal is to have that all taken care of before we have cold weather.
Thank you.
Warrior Early Learning Center, we had our groundbreaking ceremony this afternoon. Went very well. Contractors are mobilized and they're doing demolitions, so we are off and running. So a lot of excitement for that project. Harrison Elementary, exterior site work is complete. Again, working on punch list work and HVAC commissioning. Garfield Elementary, exterior finishes are being completed, so we're just wrapping up the little bit of loose ends we've had. Interior vestibule aluminum frames on doors are going in, or ongoing. They're getting installed. Those are the ones that were held up due to COVID. Punch list work is ongoing, and then HVAC commissioning is ongoing, and that's for the first phase. Lowell Elementary, there's a lot of work going on right now there. We're hanging drywall in the classroom tower and gym. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing rough-ins are being installed as well. Exterior sheeting and weather barrier at the admin area, working on stud framing at the new gym, brick veneer wall in the admin area, and then spray foam insulation at the admin area. So we do have ongoing construction happening. Good progress being made.
That exterior tower really looks nice.
Aren't the windows pretty?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's starting to really take shape.
They're beautiful.
One of the things I enjoyed about Lowell is their playground and the green space they did have. How much are we losing by the new addition there? Do you know, like a third, a fourth of that?
Not that much. I mean, we're losing a little for the additions themselves, and we still have some paving there, obviously, but we're still maintaining a lot of it.
Right.
So the playground itself hasn't changed much at all. We only had to just clip a corner of it. So.
Well, and since you're in construction right now, isn't that taking some of it that will go back to being playground again?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
that was my question. 'Cause I went by there and it was kind of hard to
Yeah.
envision where the playground was, and it will continue.
Yeah, we've made that area as large as we can and still maintain some construction work area. But
Great.
once we're done with the construction, that will be given back.
Like
So.
that basketball court will stay there. And
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I end our date nights on going to the different schools and driving around. It's quite exciting for her.
Good for you.
And then you put it in the playground?
Until the end.
You just gave me an idea, Charles.
Riverside Elementary, working on interior painting at Area B, AST staff lounge, fire sprinkler installation, and then also acoustical grid. So work is taking place there. Things are going very well. We'll be wrapping that up here shortly, and then I'll be waiting for summer construction again. So there's a nice summer remodel at Riverside. So, that's all I have.
Nice.
All right, good.
So
Thank you.
all right, you're welcome.
Keep
Thanks,
up the
David.
great work, guys.
Thanks.
One time, one of the nights that Catherine and I were out looking at the different facilities, I set a new Blacklands record. I got pulled over by law enforcement 2 times in about 200 yards. The first time they were looking, because Catherine and I were sitting out kind of screeching along in front of the building. They just asked what was up. And then went and drove about 200 yards, and he pulled me over again. But it was actually, he was pulling somebody over in between us. You can go now. It's like, he just pulled me over. He's very friendly both times, though. So that's good.
Good. Glad they're keeping an eye on our projects there.
I got to use my badge, though.
All right. Okay, next up is number 3, which is our approval of our third and final reading of policy 902.
I think Corey's coming on.
Good evening, board members.
Hi, Corey.
Hi, Corey.
Are you still there, Corey?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Was there anything more that you wanted to add or any feedback from the community?
No, if you have any direction for me, I'm happy to take it. Otherwise, the proposal stands.
So we did have Dale Coughlin here earlier, and that's included in this, so. What level is he? Is he tax exempt adult or tax exempt youth?
The Youth for Christ would be tax exempt youth, or tier 2.
Okay,
I didn't hear that.
tier 2.
Okay.
Corey has visited with him as well
Okay.
about some additional options that we would have in our revised building project that could be really useful, that could decrease the price.
Okay.
And then one thing we had talked about just lightly is if we do some kind of a transition for some of these really tough ones over the course of the next year to, so that it isn't such a sudden blow to some of these groups. But
Well, he was looking at the more than 8 hours. He doesn't usually use it for more than 8 hours.
They use it over 2 days. He has to get it ready.
2 days.
Oh.
Yeah.
The other thing too is that we have so many cool sites now that have, like, even in the cafeteria, and then they have stages.
Mhm.
You know, Harrison has that, the new Baxter has that, and so there's a lot of different places that are a lot less money than the actual performing arts areas. And we just think that we've got some other solutions where we can really help him out.
Okay.
And then how about the youth sports programs? Is that also part of this policy?
Yes, it is. They would be the tier 2 pricing, and typically they would use gyms.
Okay.
Are you referring to what Wade was here and spoke?
Yeah.
No, that would be, I mean, they're using these facilities, but he was here for, speaking, just let us use the facilities
Just want the
versus
stay
the,
safe plan,
versus
not
the
being able
rates.
to-
Yeah.
And like we've told him, as soon as we feel that we've got this comfortable.
Well, that we're gonna
with-
come back
yeah.
to with,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
That, we'll address
Okay, I
that
just
more,
wanna make sure
perhaps
that-
in number 7, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Corey,
Yeah, he didn't have a problem, I think, with the change in pricing at all.
Right.
Corey, could you boil it down to me? And I know you and I have visited a few different times about this, but could you help boil it down for me? For, say, a gym space at Forest View, what would the expense of, say, a BBA or any other of this tier 2 entities? What would it cost for a typical Tuesday evening, say? Just what would be a ballpark of that? I'm having a tricky time trying to understand. I'm just concerned that of where we were as to where we are going to be. Like I mentioned before, just don't want this to be too taxing on those entities. What's the apples to apples on this type of? Because I can see the gym per court, and looks like it's about, for less than 4 hours, $10, but.
Yeah, so tier 2, most of the tier 2 organizations are exempt at this time from paying any sort of rent. They would pay for, if they generated extra time custodial costs, they would pay for that. However, they have not paid facility use fees typically. Dale's organization, the speaker tonight, is an exception to that, and I can't speak to why that is. So for BBA, if they were to rent the Forest View gym, so let's say for 4 hours on a Tuesday night, they would likely rent all 4 courts. So they would be looking at a total cost for that 4-hour, 4-court rental of $40, $10 per court for 4 hours. So this is more than the $0 that they would currently pay. But this is.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds reasonable to me, but I don't know. The increase in price for Tornstrom, the difference between the adult and the youth is barely anything. So, I mean, I'm okay with approving these right now, but I think we should relook at those.
Well, one of the things that, that Lane mentioned, and we've had some conversation on that, you know, when, first of all, I think, Corey, you've done an excellent job of bringing this forward and making a good plan, something out of lemons, right? And it's a good format.
Yep.
But, you know, we have a lot of folks that, and organizations that have been using these facilities for years that we just have not had a really good system on what it should be. So if we were starting from scratch, I think this is perfect. And what I kind of, in visiting with Lane, wondered, can we go with this program, but give Corey, if she would be willing to take this on, to work with those handful of organizations like Dale's as an example that have been using this for years, and not necessarily not to grandfather, but try to work with them over the course of maybe it's 3 to 5 years to get to where ultimately where we are, but give Corey that discretion. Maybe it puts her in a bad spot, but you know, give her that authority to work with them, whether it's moving to different locations or working with them on the fees, so that we're not giving them a sticker shock because of things that weren't maybe managed the way they should have been over the years. If that makes any sense.
I would feel totally comfortable with that. And just to give you an idea of how I would actually go about that, I do think there is provision for this in policy 902. It would be item 10, the long-term rental agreements with outside entities. That's one way we could work it. And I would just let you know that any agreement that I entered into on behalf of the school district that had fees off of this, that different from what is in the fee agreement here, would come to the board in the form of an MOU or something to sign up. So at least there was some communication and there was a paper trail, because what we're finding now is that there are agreements that have been in place for maybe decades, and the original parties to that agreement have moved on, so the details have been lost to time. And I don't want to continue with that. So if you authorize me to have that authority to enter into those, I will make sure that there is a paper trail and that the board has some awareness of what that is.
I think it could be part of the consent calendar, so we don't have to actually talk
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, I would agree. It's a good point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this, I didn't invent this idea. This has come up as I've been in contact with our users. And there are some who are just a different situation where charging them what is strictly in the policy doesn't make sense and would frankly bankrupt them. And I know that that is not the spirit of this policy nor the board's intention. So, yeah, that's something I'm perfectly willing to take on for the board.
Thank you.
If you
I like
want.
that.
Thank you.
So just so I can understand this, is that would that include some of the entities like BYAA or EBA where we would have that freedom to work with them?
Well, let me be clear. I would want to use that discretion very sparingly, and for those situations where there's a longer term element to it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have spent 5 years asking you to approve this. We would have just continued with what we've been doing. So my intention is to follow the policy, except in rare cases where it doesn't make sense.
Tom, can I say something?
Please.
Yeah, with all due respect to Corey and Lane, I've really thought about this, and I've thought about the history of this school district, and I can't get my arms around charging organizations that are volunteer that benefit the youth of our community. Wade Hopajoki was here tonight. He talked about how BBA and BYAA we have a partnership, and they have done this for 40 years, and these are children that would be doing something else if they didn't have that. And many of these adults are volunteers, and they're very limited in what they have for money. And quite frankly, for the additional money we would get out of some of these organizations that directly affect youth does not amount to hardly anything compared to some of the angst that we're going to create here. I look back on the history of this town, and we've been through a lot, and this pandemic is one of the worst. My parents grew up here. They went through a depression in their early youth. They went through a world war in their later. And this town came through, but a lot of people hurt. We have a lot of low-income families in this community, and they have children that want to participate, and now they're going to have to raise the participation fees, even just charging $10 a gym. I get the custodial fees, and I think Wade and his group do too, and same thing with Dale. I think I would love to see an amendment where groups they're nonprofits that directly affect our youth, where they, in a way, are part of the educational process because they're teaching these kids leadership and other skills. We shouldn't be charging rent. And what I'd like to see is that it could be, the board could decide that. The administration shouldn't have to do that, and it could be part of the consent calendar. But I just can't support this because of this. And I'm sorry, but I will vote no tonight.
Right now, as a parent, as a coach within BBA and BYAA, fortunately, I get to know these young people pretty up close and personal, and I can tell you, even as it stands with the fees that a BBA or a BYAA have to charge, that prices out a segment of our population of young people. There was a girl a couple years ago that played basketball at BYAA that only goes until December. And they asked if some of the girls asked if she was going to continue on. My daughter asked, and she wasn't. And my daughter asked a simple question, well, why is that? It just costs too much. Parents can't make that happen. Now, of course, there's other things involved, like travel as well, the actual getting in the car and going. But it's a difficult thing that's already taking place at the expense that BBA had as it is. It's a concern of mine that we would just be adding to that heap of young people that might not be able to partake. And then finally, it's a concern of mine because when I was a youth in 4th grade is when I started dribbling a ball under the guidance of a coach. And that was in Warren, Minnesota, as a part of our school ball feeder system. And those are teachers of the school. They were paid a small fee to teach me how to play basketball. Now, one can argue whether or not that took or not, if you see me do a jump shot, but the important thing was that I started at the age of 4. We don't have that opportunity right now until they get into about 7th, maybe 6th grade, maybe 5th grade, depending. But it's a very small time. And so BBA and BYAA really play that role of feeder system for a lot of our young athletes. Then there's other organizations like LASA and a few others that do the same thing. So I agree with you, Bob. It's difficult for me to increase that, even if it's a bit. Seems like we're kind of biting our own hand here in this situation.
And may I add, our community is hurting now because of the pandemic. The school district is hurting right now. We have declining revenue. We have to make it up somehow. But how about in this moment of this pandemic that we say we're going to stand up for our community, and we're going to say we have a lot of kids that can no longer afford to be in these, but if we can help some way, even just this little way, by waiving the rent for these programs, that they can continue and these kids can still have a place to go.
Right, because I'm not sure if you all understand this. I'm sure you do. For BBA alone, more than likely they won't be able to host their annual tournaments, and that's their big money raiser in terms of help defray some of those costs for the young people. Without that opportunity, that burden's going to be even greater on our community youth. That's not our fault or even our responsibility. I understand that, but we certainly could play a role in helping alleviate some of those ongoing expenses.
So can I ask for clarity?
If I could-
If I think if we're looking at, say, a gym for the basketball, right? And they would be considered tier 2? And am I looking at this right, Corey, that the current rate is $28 and the proposed rate is $20 for 4 to 8 hours?
That is correct, but again, I would point to the current policy has a footnote that says basically all tier 2 organizations are exempt from paying any facility rental. So the note that says under tier 2, most currently pay nothing.
But is that just because we haven't been collecting, you mean?
It is because the policy that is currently in place states that any youth-serving organization that serves students of Brainerd Public Schools don't have to pay rent.
Okay, so the current rate is 0 then?
Will it continue that way under 902?
Well, it's being proposed to go to, I'm just looking for clarity, but, so the
That's
current
in the
rate
blue.
is not
Okay.
28, it's 0 then, correct? Would you?
Correct.
Okay, all right. So just for clarity, and then what I'm hearing is that we talk about the kids won't have access, but, so a gym for 4 to 8 hours, we're proposing to cost $10, and that's going to kill our students' opportunities?
I think it's the cumulative part over a season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what if we had like a max or something, because it costs us a lot of money to run these and to have them open and to pay the lights and the heating and the cleaning and all. It costs us a lot of money. We can't afford to keep doing it like we've done it. And so, but maybe there's a max or something that we could do for tier 2, up to or not to exceed X amount or something, because I don't know. There's a lot of overhead, and in the past, we just haven't been doing anything with it, and we can't continue to do that. You all know our financial situation too, and all we want to do is break even, or even close to it. So,
well, Corey knows best, so I kind of like the idea of approving this and then allowing her the freedom to work on it and do either a maximum or lower the cost for like Bay Ministries or whatever, and then put it in the consent calendar for now. And if it causes too many problems, we can relook at it. But there's been a lot of work in this, and I think it's probably where we should be from where we've been. But again, it's unusual times with COVID, so we could be a little more flexible in the next year or two and do the, work them up there and stuff like that too. But I don't want to make Corey go all the way back and redo this whole chart again.
I wanted to make a comment too. I know.
yeah, Corey, do you want to respond?
I'm willing to do whatever the board directs me to. But Lane, I want to reiterate Lane's point. We have, over the past 5 years, we know it costs the school district $4.15 per hour to run a gym. And the proposal on the table for these tier 2 organizations is to charge them $1.25 an hour. So there's nearly $3 of the district's basically subsidizing their use of the gym, which I think is a pretty big investment that recognizes the value that these organizations bring to our community and to the students. And I think it's a fair trade-off between when resources are scarce. If we don't find a way to collect something for the resources we're expending here, we will have to redirect them away from the classroom and to these facilities that renters are renting. So that's really what it comes down to. How much, it's $4.15 an hour to run a gym, and we're going to charge $1.25. Do you want the gap between that cost and what we're asking them to pay to be bigger? that's fine. If you do, I'll go back to the drawing board.
Well, and I agree with both Bob and Charles. I mean, this is our feeder system, and it's great for the kids, without a doubt. I just would have a hard time believing that at $1.25, that's going to do anything with the programs. And at some point in time, we have a fiscal responsibility that we can't just keep giving for fear of our feeder system. And that's kind of where, we asked Corey, we have to get a handle on it. We've been giving for the last umpteen years by not collecting.
Well,
In the good times. So even in the good times, we weren't collecting.
And if I understood, Charles, you right, you were talking about the bankrupt, not because of these costs, but because of COVID and not being able to have their tournament. Is what I understood.
No, the COVID piece was more context. The important piece is, I would hate to see LASA, BBA, BYAA have to increase their prices too much, where my daughter's friend, more of them aren't able to continue on and play BBA or BYAA due to the expense. That's my biggest concern. Some realities are the lack of ability possibly to be able to do their tournaments, which is a major fundraiser. And this will just exacerbate that situation.
And that's due to COVID, the lack.
That is due potentially to COVID, depending on where we are.
Well, and hopefully it gets better as time goes on, so we can do some of those things, but we'll just have to see.
Say, Corey, I guess last question. I'm sorry, you probably told me this before, but the one thing that you've done really well, which I appreciate, is you communicated well with those associations that we're referencing. Just so you know, I don't question that in the least, nor your intent. But maybe in your conversations with them, is this just a paper tiger in front of me, or is this what were some of their thoughts that they provided you?
When the first version came out, and when you reviewed it in March, I did send it out to the facilities users at that time. Some of them, I did hear from some of them, and mostly it was on how I calculated the 0 to 4, 4 to 8, and more than 8. I had a little math error there. So really that was the only feedback I got at that time. And through this whole process, I have not heard from, really Dale is the only one I've heard from with that kind of concern. And I was very upfront with him that yes, he is looking at a significant increase in fees. But as Lane said, I'm happy to work with him and any organization to find creative ways and spaces to minimize those fees. But the fact of the matter is we're increasing our fees. So there's not really a way to get around it, and it's all scaled proportionally. So the feedback has been actually much less than it was before people saw the scale that we proposed. If you recall, I think back in January or February, we had a couple commenters from Tier 1 organizations who were deeply concerned about the increase in costs. And since they have actually seen the actual information in front of you, we have not heard from them again.
So you mean Tier 2, correct? Tier 2 or Tier 1?
Tier 2.
And they had come before you even presented the first reading or anything of what you were bringing forth. And then
yes.
They were way more comfortable when you talked to them.
Corey, can I ask a question here? I don't understand how, when Dale Kuglin was talking, it was going from $72 up to $1,200. Because I just don't get that, because that's ridiculous.
Well,
sure. So really that is coming from the fact that what I've done with our fees is made them proportional to the size of the space. With the Performing Arts Center being the largest space with the highest capacity for people in it, and then everything sort of proportionally scaled from there. So if you think of it, Tornstrom is approximately 3/4 of the size of the PAC will be. So the fees are proportionally scaled. And that is another addition, another reason his fees would go up is that at this time we do not have a more than 8 hours tier to our pricing. We only have less than 4 or more than 4. So we have added that third tier because we know that once you've been in a facility for more than 8 hours, working yourself towards 12, you now are using more electricity, more heating and cooling, more consumables in the restrooms. Like the costs and the wear and tear to the facility just go up. So we implemented that third tier. So he kind of got in the midst of the perfect storm where we adjusted the prices so that they were scaled and proportional, and we added that third tier. So he's now, unfortunately, he's just kind of caught in the midst of our own adjustment of our facilities. But again, I would be happy to work with him to be creative about how to get him the time and the type of space he needs if he chose to continue to use Brainerd public school facilities for the Bay Rallies.
Bob, do you have something more to?
Yeah, not to continue to belabor this longer, but a lot of times we talk about what is our true mission here. A lot of times people say we got to run the school district like a business. And we always say, well, no, this involves children. This is not run like a business. And I look at the money we're going to make on this with these nonprofits that directly affect children, and I say, it doesn't add that much. And quite frankly, it's an extension of our academic program. These kids are learning, they're staying off the street. And there are so many of these kids that are sort of left behind. Even when I was a kid, my parents had to decide sometimes what I could participate in and back then there were a lot more YMCA programs that took care of things that weren't available in the school district. I don't want that to happen. Freedom was here and talked about these kids that are homeless and they're sort of part of a throwaway society. We can do better. I don't want to run this like, I want to take care of all children. All children deserve to play football or basketball. And I know it's athletics, but it's a good program for our kids. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not trivializing anything that Corey has done or you have done, Lane. What I would like to see is that, once again, nonprofits that directly affect children, we would have a waiver, and that could be done in a consent calendar, and so the board could decide. Corey wouldn't have to have that pressure. That's all I'm asking, and I don't know if I could do an amendment right now or make a motion to amend this.
Well, isn't we heard earlier about the basketball association. I forget what the letters are. The
BBA.
BBA or BYA. Two different ones.
Really wanting to be able to use the facilities and willing to even pay for the services, as far as even hiring a professional service to come in and clean.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, well, that's far more expensive than it is to cover this kind of an expense, and that's why I'm kind of confused that it seems like there's a willingness to do that.
I think that was more for the usage. So right now they're being told that it has to be custodial staff, and originally they proposed that they would do it, and now what they're saying is, well, let us hire someone where the custodians don't have to do it.
Right.
But I think what Wade said is they're willing to pay the custodial fees. They don't have a problem with that. They know that's a burden on the school district. Is that how you understood it with Wade?
Mm-hmm.
I thought I heard you say it.
They have the three proposals.
I haven't heard any feedback from BBA or BYA, who I've been in extensive communication for the last 2 weeks on. None of that communication has been on the proposed fees, and I'm nearly certain that they are very aware of what they are, because again, a number of them have received all these communications from me about it. Their concern at this time really is about access to using the facilities, which I think is a later agenda item, and I'm happy to address the issues there too. But to be clear, none of what Mr. Hapajoki spoke about to you this evening or what he emailed you earlier about has anything to do with the fees. At this point, I would interpret their silence on the proposed fees to be some form of acceptance.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think that what he's talking about is more during COVID because we're trying to keep our facilities as clean as we can, and they're wanting to add and bring things in, and we're trying to, Reed is working hard to every day make sure that everything is getting sanitized and that it's ready for the next day so that it's sanitized for our kids. And people are wanting to bring in activities, and we're saying, just hold on for a little while until we know what's going on and until we feel like we can safely open them up, because we can't have the people that are working in Reed's department clean and then somebody come in, and then even if they say they're going to clean, if it's not up to the standards that of the training, and I know he said he would do the training and stuff like that, how do we know then that it's clean for the next day? That is a kind of a short-term thing. It's not this policy.
Right, yeah. Thank you. The only reason I brought it up is confusion in my mind. They have the funds, the willingness to pay for that, but they don't have the funds to pay for this. And my concern is that if we don't approve this and we get another organization or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 all dedicated to the youth, which is absolutely wonderful, and our policy says there's no cost, we just keep going further backwards and backwards.
That's right.
And that this allows us to put a stop to that and start making changes. In particular, if we can, if Corey's willing to take on that responsibility, and I believe will be fair, to work with all the organizations, Dale's, the Basketball Association, to work with them because we don't want to lose the programs or the kids in those programs. Absolutely, we don't want to do that. And if we can give Corey that authority to work with them to make sure that we don't.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to say, I think parents that can afford the dollars to put them into this or in our school sports or whatever, they're very willing to pay it for their kids. And when we have school sports, the parents that aren't able to pay, we have a sliding scale or it's free or whatever. And I'm hoping BYA, yes, thank you, have similar things. And it should really be down to the family level to get those kids in, because us not charging them facility fees, there's still a fee, a fairly substantial fee to the parents to get into the program. I shouldn't say.
BBA's, I can't remember, 275.
And I'm sure they have a sliding scale for other.
I think there are some
Yeah,
needed
so that's
scholarships.
where that should be.
Well-
It's with the families, not, and I think Wade is more than willing to pay. I don't know if he's the head of it, but I got the impression that he's willing to pay something for use. I'd be willing, if I had a youth program, to pay something to the school district for the use of their facilities.
Well,
For
you
a
know,
program.
there's two things, just, again, an attempt to provide some context. One of the things, and Lane knows this, that in terms of my own personal health and wanting to be around for my family for a lot of years, I stay away from donuts on a daily basis. So it's really important for me for the long term. But if I don't have something to eat all day and I've been working or traveling, then I throw in a donut, because then there's a difference between access or for the BEBA or plain existence. So these really aren't apples to apples discussions here, whether or not we're the BBA or BYAA where they're sitting this year. Right now they're discussing whether or not they exist this year, as to whether or not where Bob and I are kind of more talking about the access to young people.
Right.
And you know, Lane and I are, you know, part of and a few others, part of a new task force here with the Brainerd School District. And a big part of that is access and opportunity. Now, a lot of that does lie along the lines of life choice, where somebody is, or also ethnic background or culture and what have you. race and creed, but also access to these opportunities that we're so robust in our community. So I feel this is more of an issue of access than not necessarily something about a budgetary item.
Mhm. And we forgot to mention LASA. LASA is also part of that.
Yeah, they're part of that. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've got to kind of agree with Bob and Charles too on it, but I also look at the financial side of it too, and you know, at some point we do have to start charging again, even if it's only a third of it or whatever. But because again, you know, even like Wade was saying, we can't use Franklin anymore because it's deteriorated so bad. You know, so all the upkeep and the overhead of keeping these facilities in shape, you know, does cost money. So we do have to make sure that we keep the facilities in good shape, and it takes money. It's a tough one to do, but I'd like to see Tier 2 not be charged for, you know, another year or two just because of COVID, but at some point we do have to make a move.
And what I'm hearing from you, Lane, is that you're willing to work with these organizations to help them
Absolutely.
through. So
Absolutely.
I could support that then.
And then we could bring those, like Corey said, if she's gonna use that number 10, like, if they know they're gonna do it year after year, maybe there's some kind of an agreement, the long-term agreement, and she can work with that, and then bring it through the consent agenda.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Corey?
I am. I just want to emphasize again that I would use that very sparingly. I do not, what we don't want to happen is for the board to be asked to approve every tier 1 rental, because that's the majority of our rentals, and your consent agenda would be several pages long. If that's the road you're going to go down, then we
No,
might.
tier
as
2, Corey,
I
not
would-
tier 1.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, tier 2, that's what I mean. I don't, it would be hard to imagine, never mind. I'll just suffice it to say that I would use that authority very sparingly, because really there wouldn't be a lot of reason to not charge what's in the policy.
Okay.
Okay. Sue, did you have something you were going to say, or?
I think Corey's got it together there. I would agree with what she's going to do, and it sounds like she's willing to do it. You can't do it for everybody, but, you know, there's ones that we've had agreements with for years, and we should continue that, you know, maybe small amounts in the beginning. Because there's the asterisk in here that says most pay nothing. I don't think anybody should be at nothing, but certainly the lower price.
All right, I would entertain a motion on however you want to word it.
Okay, I'll make a motion to, okay, let me look at this. Approve the third and final reading, right? We're doing this all together, right? Of MSBA Policy 902, use of district facilities and equipment with the draft proposed appendix or the proposed appendix, the fee comparison and the facilities use budget, and giving Corey the authority to work with tier two renters in the coming years to adjust as needed, as she sees fit, and those will be included on the consent calendar. And I think that's the longest motion I've ever made. Sorry about that. You can shorten it up, Janet.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, could I request a roll call vote? So it's clear the vote.
Sure. So we have a motion by Director Nelson, second by Director Kern. I won't repeat the motion. I might suggest, though, instead of identifying Corey, that we label as a community ed director.
Okay, I'll make that amendment.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will have a roll call vote.
Reed Campbell,
Yes.
Tom Haglund,
Yes.
Sue Kern,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Bob Nystrom,
No.
Charles Black-Lance,
Nope.
4-2.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next up will be item number 4. Greg?
Oh, you know, he was waiting out there this whole time. Hi, Greg. Sorry to make you wait.
I'm just glad to be here. Want to see people in person.
Oh.
See you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
I'm smiling. Can you see my smiles?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in the eyes.
Smile eyes.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
And I don't need to introduce him, but
No.
Greg Crow, Ellers.
Hi, nice to be here, everyone. You just got a copy of the pre-sale report for what we'll call Phase 4 of the funding for the project. And we're down to maybe one or two more phases, depending on how things shake out. But this is a long-term facilities maintenance bond. And I'm not going to go through the report line by line. You're all pretty familiar with how you issue debt, and just want to make sure you're kind of up to date on the finances. There is one little twist on this that I want to talk about. It's if you look at the resolution and this report, so the report says 15 million on the front cover. The resolution says up to 16.5 million. The goal here is to, regardless of the interest rate we get, to issue the amount of bonds that maintains the tax rate that we talked about during the election. So the 15 million that's in the report is based on an interest rate plus about a little less than 0.5% of cushion in terms of where rates are now in case they go up between now and the bond sale. So if we get interest rates that are lower than what's in the pre-sale report, which is about 2.1%, we could issue some additional bonds because you've got projects identified that could be financed with the full amount. But again, we're targeting that tax rate we used during the election. And so currently market rates are about 1.7% and even lower. So we could see great results. Rates have dropped over the summer and they've stabilized now. We expect a little uncertainty around the election, but really the underlying economy, there isn't anything that people are projecting rates are going to jump up. And everything from the Fed to everything else is helping push interest rates down or keep them stable. And so that's another piece of the twist is that we've done this before for a variety of reasons, but the resolution you're looking at has a parameter in it. Your next board meeting where we have enough time to do everything between now and the bond sale is October 26th. That's within about a week of the election. So our preference is to move that up by about a week, the actual bond sale. So the plan for the bond sale is to sell the bonds, take bids on October 21st. And as we've done before, you have a resolution that says if the interest rate's under 2.5%, the superintendent or business manager and a board official can accept the bid on that day. So that gets us up a little bit earlier before the election, and then the board action will actually be to ratify the award of the bonds, which actually occurs at the time that those two individuals accept the low bid. So that's kind of the difference process-wise, and why there's a little bit of a different total dollar amount. The other thing I want to point out is phase 5 or 6. The only other bond issue that we intend to do that has a tax impact is the abatement bonds. There's a small amount of abatement bonds for parking lots that remains in the big plan. And so if you really want to get into the details and look at that amortization schedule with the real small print, you'll see that the debt goes down starting with taxes in pay 22 by about $100,000 a year. That will allow us a year from now to sell about $1 million abatement bond, which is about what's left, and keep the tax rate at where we're going to set it for pay 21 after this bond sale. So basically building a little step down that can be backfilled with that abatement bond. The other bonds we're talking about are bonds that don't have a tax impact, like facilities maintenance bonds, because they come out of your per pupil revenue that you already have in the general fund. So that's kind of the big picture plan right now and an update of where we're at. And, you know, really it's part of just our ongoing desire to keep as much flexibility for you, so that if the rate was even lower and we hit that 16.5 million that's in the resolution, we'd probably build in some additional step downs that would either allow you to plan for unexpected things or have some tax reduction in the future if there isn't additional bond sales after this. So that's kind of the plan. And you've got all the details about when the bonds are callable, the rating process. There's a calendar on page 5, just kind of a schedule of the events. And we'll start moving through that fairly quickly. And then some financial schedules on 6, 7, and 8. And page 8 is that colorful chart you're used to seeing about how we kind of layer everything in as we've been issuing the bonds. There's less colors now because pretty much most of the bonds have been sold at this point. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the resolution or about the report.
Greg, would this be a 25-year bond?
This would be a 20-year bond.
Oh, 20-year, okay.
Yep.
But all the debt would be done in 2043? All of our
Yes,
debt?
so that's the last payment on the big bond issue from the voter approved amount.
Okay.
Yep.
Director Blacklance will be the only person left on the board then, so.
And I did want to add, since these are, I did want to add that since these are LTFM bonds, we did have to update the 10-year plan, so that is also in your packet, the 10-year expenditures and revenues. So what we're issuing the debt for was added to on the expense side and on the revenue side.
And paragraph 2 of the resolution authorizes the revision of the 10-year plan, so that's incorporated into the resolution.
Do you think there will be a lot of people bidding this project? Or I mean, these bonds?
Yeah, you know, we've seen really active bond markets. There's a lot of demand right now. I think we've told you in the past, we always kind of want to see at least 3 bids. If we get 5, that's great. We've been seeing 7, 8, 9, 10 bids on competitive bond sales in the last couple of months. So, yeah, a lot of activity, and I would anticipate, similar activity on this one as well. So,
okay.
Excellent. Any questions for Greg or Marcy?
What was the rate we were going to give them authority to go to approve?
What was the question?
What was the rate we were going to give them the authority to approve?
yeah, so it's 2.5%, and you
2.5?
see that in paragraph 6 of the resolution.
I'll make the motion that we approve the resolution stating the intention of the school board to issue general obligation bonds to finance projects included in the district's approved 10-year facility plan, covenanting and obligating the district to be bound by and to use the provisions of Minnesota statutes, section 126C.55, to guarantee the payment of the principal and interest on the bonds.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Director Nystrom, second by Director Campbell to approve the resolution as presented. Any discussion? It being a resolution, we'll do roll call.
Tom Hagelin?
Yes?
Sue Kern? Yes. Ruth Nelson?
Yes.
Bob Nystrom?
Yes.
Charles Blacklance?
Yes.
Reed Campbell?
Yes.
All in favor?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. I will see you in about a month.
Yeah, thanks for waiting out there for us. and
Hopefully
doing
with great
it.
results, and maybe COVID will be over by then.
We're hopeful. We're hopeful.
It'll just go away.
All right, thanks, Craig.
Drive careful.
Good night.
Yeah, night.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Okay, next up is agenda item 5, which is approval of our preliminary 2020 payable property tax levy. Marcy?
I know you've been waiting for this all night. All right, so I'm going to start with the timeline. September 9th was the first run that MDE put out. There's several runs since. They basically correct errors, keep running the report. September 28th, today, you guys review the proposed levy amount. Property owners will receive their proposed taxes mid-November, and then December 14th, we will hold the public hearing where we certify that levy amount. 2021 proposed tax levy sets taxes to be payable in 2021. For the school district, they're not recognized until 2022, so that's July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. As of 9/24, the estimated increase is 3.84%, and that incorporates the bond that you just approved. Much of the revenues are based on student enrollment, so for 21-22, the projected ADM is the 6,464. The levy by fund, you can see the majority of it is debt services. So when you take the general debt service and OPEB debt service, it's 56%. Last year it was 54%. General fund is 42%, and last year it was 44%. And then community ed is 2%, and last year it was also 2%. The proposed levy of 3.84% is under the 5-year average, 5.82 and 4.7. You can see last year's it was 1.54%. In the general fund, as noted, the revenue is tied to enrollment, so the general fund is going down. We are having a decline in enrollment from 1920 to 2021 and then 21-22, which comes to about 2.44%. And then there are adjustments from prior years. So the levy, we set the preliminary levy. So for example, I'll give you the transition funds, which is super tiny. Sorry, you guys. So we set that based on the projected enrollment. 2 years down the road, when we know the actual enrollment, the levy will come back and adjust what our actual enrollment was. So a lot of these adjustment rows are from prior year levies. If that makes sense. And then the other funds, community ed, it is up 3.13%, and that's primarily due to prior year adjustments. So in the 2020 levy, we had a large adjustment with school age care, and we had an adjustment this year as well. It just wasn't as large. Debt services were up 10.73%, and that is with tonight's LTFM bond. And then OPEB is up 1.86%, just with the OPEB debt payment. Overall, that's the 3.84%. And this is also very small, but this is our outstanding debt service. So after the sale this next month, we will need to add the 2020A column. The last debt issuance was 2019A. And it does go through 2044, as noted earlier. 3.84% on the levy does not equate if there is a change in the tax base. So if our tax base stayed exactly the same, 3.84% would be what people see on their tax statements. However, that doesn't ever happen. We always see a change in the tax rate. Market value averages 3.7%. That won't actually come out until later, 2020, so our most recent data is 2019. The referendum market value excludes certain properties, the largest being ag and seasonal recreation, and that's used with referendum and equity levies. Taxable market values is broken down by type to calculate the net tax capacity, so that's where you get into the commercial, those types of classifications. So you have a market value, but then you're also put into a classification to come up with the next net tax capacity.
Marcy?
Yeah.
A net tax capacity, so it went up, what, 4.2% in 2019. So technically, if 2020 was the same, people wouldn't see any property tax increase.
Unless they saw a change in their market value.
And that
Right,
is
yes.
going to go up.
But you are thinking correctly.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So for tonight, we're asking that you approve the maximum to allow for changes between now and September 30th. So if MDE does a couple more runs and finds other things that maybe need to be tweaked or adjusted, that does allow us to technically go above that 3.84% if needed or below. And then once September 30th is hit, we cannot go above those limitations in December, excuse me. So looking for approval on the maximum levy, proposed property tax levy tonight.
So Marcy, doing a 3.84% increase, what is that in real dollars that we're raising for the school district?
900 and some odd change, 900,000.
Close enough.
Yeah, thanks. $909,250.28.
Okay, I'll move the approval of the preliminary 2020 payable 2021 property tax levy at the maximum.
Second.
Motion by Director Nelson, second by Director Nystrom for approval of our 2020 payable 2021 property tax levy as presented. Any further discussion? Not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you.
Item number 6, and this, I believe, has to do with a non-tenured teacher that was just missed on our last meeting, is that correct?
Yeah, last spring,
Last spring?
when we did the non-renewals. And it was just one that they found that had been missed. And this teacher hasn't been with us since last year.
I'll also move the approval of this resolution for non-renewal of a non-tenured teacher.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Director Nystrom, second by Director Campbell for approval of this resolution. Any further discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Sue Curran,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Bob Nystrom,
Yes.
Charles Blacklands,
Yes.
Reed Campbell,
Yes.
Tom Haglund,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you. Last agenda item is discussion of athletics and activities. So I don't know if we have Charlie and Andrea joining us, or maybe.
They left a half hour ago.
I did see Charlie here earlier.
And then Heidi and Angie too. Heidi and Angie too.
And Heidi and Angie and Lane, it says
And
on
Lane,
here.
too, yeah.
So, Charlie and Andrea, are you with us or online?
Seems like someone's there.
I'm assuming they're coming down.
Oh, I bet they are. I think we need a 5-minute bathroom break.
Do you want a break?
We could.
Do you want to take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, that coffee's not paying off.
Oh. All right, let's do that while we
Can we
rally.
take a 5-minute break?
All right.
Okay.
So, Janet, are we supposed to be?
We're
going for a 5-minute break.
They're on their way.
Yeah. I can't believe how you thought he read.
Yeah, if you had to work with this board.
Yeah. Good idea on the front end.
Andy.
We're like letting a bunch of kids out of class out here.
But I had to look at it, I gotta look up. Yeah, it's close. Sorry. No problem.
didn't realize I had 10 years worth of minutes back here. I suppose I could file, put some of these away.
Maybe I can't be. How many can be in here?
For well, I think they have 19.
Okay.
I see how you sometimes I'll go back to the.
Oh. Tom, we did hear you. We just scrambled to all of a sudden get up. We weren't.
Oh,
so-
okay. Thought maybe you fell asleep on us.
No, no. Hi, Bob. How are you?
Good. I just have a question.
Sure.
How are you trying to get our brother?
I did, and I talked to him today.
No.
Yeah, I communicated with him over the
Yeah.
weekend,
Okay.
and then I asked him for a little time so I could find out some more information.
Okay.
And then we talked briefly today, so I didn't want to bother him too long, but I sent him a follow-up email, and then he said he'd respond back.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know it was an addition. I thought it was like history or civics or something.
Right. Well, in the Minnesota state standards, there is learning curriculum in science. And so she had tried to get kids to think critically about First Amendment, that's what we're learning about, and language and so. Yeah, she felt bad that, yeah, exactly. So she, I'm trying to kind of right now, we're giving them for maybe minutes to learn.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
I'll get back. Yeah.
And so, she's very fair.
I'm well, thanks.
Very careful, very good audience.
So on the way here, I got that drink. Then I also got a, I didn't eat anything really. I got a bagel. There are donuts there, but I'm trying to be a good boy.
All right.
And I got a bagel and I got a
Thank you.
jalapeno bagel from Fairview. Wonderful. Like, it's really hot. There's actual jalapenos on the top of it. By the time I got here, my lips were kind of numb when I got to the meeting because it's so hot.
And then you have to weigh the mask. Warm it up more.
It's like chafing my lips. And it was good though.
All right.
It's a little hotter than I usually like, but it was good.
And then you have your iced coffee. So.
Yeah, that cooled it down. Oh, okay. Thank you.
They wouldn't know about the
Okay, it looks like we're all back. And Charlie and Andrea and the rest of your team, whoever is joining. We're here to talk about the fees. No, we did that already.
Yeah, we did that. Oh, that was,
Go back on the agenda?
Paul Corey blocking.
Oh.
Please, not again.
All right. Well, we'll turn this over to you. As you know, you've heard from a lot of public input this evening, as well as I'm sure you've been inundated with phone calls and emails and whatnot, and would like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I do not envy the position of decision makers at this time, because they're all difficult and they all present challenge and have effect, and some of it's not necessarily what we desire. Last week was just a really crazy week. On Monday, the Minnesota State High School League Board of Directors moved to put football and volleyball back to the competitive fall season starting today. And within 24 hours, I was with a small group of ADs drafting a football schedule for 22 schools of the North Central Football District. And in the middle of that, learned that we were going to have to make the move to distance learning at the high school. And so that swing of emotion last week was really intense and really, really challenging, because that's not news that you want to hear. And, you know, I would love to say, well, I'm sitting here before you with just a blanket recommendation that we continue on with our activities program, because that's the center of my universe and it's the most important thing we do. And that's simply, I think it's a lot bigger discussion than that. I would much rather have the endorsement of the Department of Health to say, we believe that you can do this safely, which I do believe that we can do this safely, because we've been doing that, you know, for quite some time. Some reasons I believe this. Number one is we operate differently than students in the school system. Okay, we have identified pods already. We call them teams and levels. We generally do not intermix pods if we have teams that have multiple levels. We take great care not to do so. We do not intermix with other teams. In the traditional school setting, our students move throughout the day from one classroom to another. They go to the lunchroom. They continually exchange and intermix with their peers in different ways. And that school day looks and feels a lot different than what we do. We've taken, as the parents that were here mentioned, we've taken every morsel of guidance and precaution that has been directed towards us, and we've executed it to the best of our ability. To our knowledge, we have had 0 COVID cases that have resulted from any transmission as a result of our sport and activity. That is to our knowledge. The High School League is collecting data on COVID every other Friday as it has impacted schools and programs. And my data submission from last Friday looked a lot different than the Friday from 2 weeks previous, as you can imagine. And I think other schools are feeling that as well. This is really challenging. I don't know that I quite understood the idea of moving to distance learning. It's maybe, and I don't want to say an easier decision for an academic setting, but our season has a defined start. It's a very small window of time. And when we moved to distance learning and hit the pause button on our programs, which we were advised to do, the season continues. And that's what's a little different. Other teams were dependent upon us to offer their educational programming, and you know, it stops us from fulfilling that. Certainly, the experiences for our own students stops. It's you can't do competition virtually, not in physical sport. And I don't know that we really understood what it would mean. It sounded really good when we said, well, great, if we move to distance learning, we'll just not do our sport anymore. And meanwhile, we watch and the season goes on, and the kids are on social media and they watch the news and these things happen. And it's a really challenging situation. I think my role here is to answer questions you may have. Again, it would be my preference if the Department of Health or our regional response team could look at our program on its own and say, we'd recommend that you do as much of your educational programming in person safely that you can, and we think this is one part that you can continue to do safely. That would be my preference, that we get that recommendation. That's not in my control, however. And so here we are tonight. We have passionate people, you've heard me say before. Sports and athletics and activities are not the most important thing a school district does, but it tends to be the thing that our community cares about the most. And I don't want to minimize the importance that our programs have on kids. But it is a tough decision, because in one breath, you say, or have to support in-person programming for a small number of our kids, and to a much larger number say, that's a really hard thing for us to do right now and we just can't. And it's a very tough place to be, and I don't envy where any of us are in that regard. But I don't know, I've maybe summarized kind of, my vantage point. I know that our coaches want this, and our student athletes want this, and our parents want this. We will certainly take any direction from the board, and we will execute that with the full faith and confidence and to the best of our ability.
Thank you. Charlie? Principal Ross? Sure.
Can I ask quick, Charlie, what was the plan for away games in Blessed? Were we following the guidelines of half capacity, or?
Yes, we were. For away games, generally speaking, it was preferred that we show up dressed in uniform. Swimming presents a little bit of a challenge with the distances we travel. But yeah, we would wear masks. We would run buses at about 50% capacity. If we could do it, we would take one bus and a van. In some cases, we had to double up our buses. So yeah, we're taking great measures to follow the guidance given to us.
So we can discuss kind of what's put us in this situation. So that's been our role and responsibility. So as Ms. Bennett and myself, she's been tracking our staff COVID cases. I've been tracking our student COVID cases. And as we're very aware of, we had a cluster and outbreak that the Department of Health got actively involved in with us as we've looked to track those students. We have 30 positive cases. We continue to watch those. But there's a larger cluster that's growing, and we're looking at that guidance. When we look at a group of kids who've been together, about half of them have been identified as being positive, and there's concern that that continues to grow. So in talking, I reached back out to the Department of Health after we got together to look at directions or things that we needed to move forward with. We asked specifically the question about activities and athletics and what we could be doing. And their guidance back to us is if we could say with 100% certainty that the individuals that have been identified as positive have not been in contact and will not be in contact with those that are going to participate in activities, they would support that. However, that's very difficult for us to say, that these people have not been in contact with one another. And so we've also been working closely with Crow Wing County Public Health. We have Michelle Moritz with us on the line, so if there's questions that you want to ask directly to her, you can do so. And again, these have not been easy decisions, as you're aware of. This has been very difficult. We're watching things very closely. And we've been following the Minnesota Department of Health guidelines from start to finish. In every decision we've made in every process, it's been based on the Department of Health guidelines that have been set forth before us.
And just to add on to that, Michelle Moritz, Heidi mentioned, we did also talk to Crow Wing County Public Health about their opinion on the activities matter too, just to see that we were, reaching out to our resources, and they concurred with MDH in that recommendation.
I also want to bring up, had a meeting in regard to activities, I believe it was last week. And one concern too is liability on the district if we were to bring students back at activities. I believe John Edison might be on the line, but we also consulted with him about the risk to the district if we were to have students back, kind of working against the safe learning plan that was developed as guidance for us. So just wanted to offer that up too.
Andrea, any comments?
I concur. These are very difficult decisions. And we are tasked with making difficult decisions. And I just want to be clear, though, that I have not been contacted by any parents in regards to activities. None. Zero. However, I received probably a dozen to 2 dozen emails updating me on positive cases from family members and parents and students letting us know how they're doing. And another person was positive, and another. So I mean, that's where I've been more busy with supporting the students that have tested positive or have gone into quarantine and are unsure about what to do, and are my teachers going to be okay if I get sick? And I mean, like they're worried about getting sick, or they're worried about keeping up with their schoolwork. So mine has not been about activities, although I care a great deal and I value them highly in our comprehensive program.
Does Michelle want to add something? And then I'd like to add something too. Michelle?
Michelle, can you hear us if you want to jump in? Oh, we don't have volume for her. Justin, can you? Hang on just 1 second, Michelle. Try again. Nope, still not yet.
Well, maybe, yeah.
How about
Lynn,
if I
you-
just go start? As the superintendent of this district, one of the hardest decisions that I've had to make since I came here is to move us from an in-person hybrid into a distance learning model within the first 3 weeks that we were here. And the decision was made with a whole lot of heart and thought. It wasn't made easily, and it certainly was no fun. And to make the decision on athletics was even worse, because there weren't any direct cases in those after-school activities at the time. But I do want to just reiterate that I need to start by thanking my team for doing just an incredible job. You as a board have hired some phenomenal people in this district who take their jobs very, very seriously. And when we were asked last spring and again last summer to put together a distance learning model and then revamp our distance learning model and add a hybrid model, and to follow the safe learning plan as developed by MDE and the Minnesota Department of Health. These people did it with rigor, they did it with grace, and they did it with just incredible professionalism and leadership. And we were asked to take this model and to figure out how we as a school district to develop our own model based on this model, and to develop a model that went along that coincided with that model. And so we did that. And in this, and it's so rigorous. It's just, I can't even explain it. It's just crazy hard to implement everything that they're asking us to do. And yet, I look out here in this team and I think about all the people that I've been working with, and not one of these decisions was easy, and it's heart-wrenching, is what it is. But in this model, it says that when you go into distance learning because of cases of COVID, or cases where we might infect teachers or infect other kids, it says that extracurricular activities are discontinued. Although we didn't want to make that decision, we knew it was the right decision because that's the guidance we had from the MDH. I have to say that, like I said, it was really hard. And so we met last week and said, is there a happy medium? Is there some way after a week, because we went last Wednesday, and if we had a week where things seemed to be getting better and we weren't getting a lot more cases and there wasn't anything in our teams, is there a possible way that we could reinstate sports? But I have to tell you too, that we called this Tuesday night or Tuesday afternoon, late afternoon, because of just watching what was happening to the trends. And I had schools that we played sports that night that were so livid and so angry at me because we didn't cancel those sports on Tuesday night and we waited till Wednesday. And I want you to know that there's that other side to this too, that they don't want to be, if they think there's a chance where somebody could pass on a virus or something, they don't want that either. And so I'm just telling you because that is the truth. That's, I got that information as well. But we tried really hard to see if there was a way where we could restart sports this week. If getting the recommendation from MDH, if things seem like they were getting better. And this is where I really need Michelle because she's got more of the...
She's here, so.
She's got more of the data. But just what was brought to us, the recommendation was not to restart it early. But I'm just telling you what the latest recommendation from MDH was. And now Michelle from Crow Wing County.
There are two things. In talking with the Department of Health, they really were concerned just because of the growing numbers and just that ability to contact trace exactly who students have been in contact with. So their clear direction was if you cannot with 100% certainty say where everybody has been and where that contact has been, they were not in support of that recommendation. So Michelle has joined us via phone and she feels like you're covering things well. I think, Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you for sure, Heidi.
Okay, so I'm holding you up to the microphone so you'll be broadcasted through the phone. I think one of the questions Lane has asked or brought forward is that you talk about local data and some of the recommendations that you have.
Yes, so one of the items in particular has been our case count has increased greatly over the last 2 weeks here. And we expect to be announcing, larger numbers for the 14-day count in the following weeks because those counts are looking back at positive cases that have come in during those 2-week period of time. And that's the standard that we're using along the lines for the safe learning and for how schools are operating, if they're in person or hybrid or distant learning. With that, the school has done, and the staff there has done an excellent job of tracking these cases that are associated with the cluster there in students. And it's not just the students themselves that have tested positive, but it's the numbers of people around these positive cases. This virus has spread very well throughout our community, but also from this cluster. When I had numbers pulled this morning, we were looking at a lot fewer that we could see as Crow Wing County residents, fewer than what the school can see, because the school is able to see not only Crow Wing County residents, they're also able to see residents from outside of Crow Wing County. And we have not been able to interview all of the individuals that have tested positive. So at this point, the school does have better data around the positive cases within the school. But from those that I could see, we had 56 additional cases that we are following because of the spread. And so you can see how quickly that can ripple out from a few cases out and spread very, very quickly. And Heidi, I believe I just heard you say that now we're at 30 cases within the school, and that's a significant increase from last week where we were at with this cluster of cases, and then also other cases that are going to pop up from a variety of different exposure settings, including school or community-based events, or just even household contacts spreading it to each other. Our cases in children has certainly increased over the last weeks here. Thankfully, we heard earlier that the number of deaths in Minnesota associated with children is very, very low. Actually, just one that we are aware of. But it's not so much just the deaths rate. It's like it's the overall impact of COVID on our community and the level of disruption. I know you have absolutely heard that from the level of disruption within the sports, but also the level of disruption within our business community as well from COVID. And if your school closes or any of our schools close, it has a rippling effect across our community, and the number of households that unexpectedly went to distant learning in a few hours and needing to change their plans. Thankfully, for the most part, we're dealing with teenagers that might not need as much supervision as if it were our little ones in the elementary ages. That would significantly impact our community and our workplaces. And so it's not, I focus less about the deaths and more on the overall impact across our county and across Minnesota to when we're making changes within the schools. So any questions that I can answer?
Michelle, what is our current rate per 10,000?
So what's going to be announced, let me pull that up. So what was announced last week on Thursday was 11.12. We are anticipating the new rate to be announced on Thursday is going to be in the range of 15, a little bit higher than 15 per 10,000. We can see significantly the number has increased that will be announced that following week on the 15th. It is nearly doubled the rate from what we will be announcing on Thursday. So right now with missing data, or it's not so much missing, it's just pending data to know the final count, we are sitting at like 26 for that following week to be announced on the 15th. Our numbers are gaining by 20s, where a couple of weeks ago we were gaining by 4s and 5s in a day of new cases. Any other questions that I can help with?
When on the 15th that you're anticipating around 26, what will that total number be, and how many will have dropped off the prior 7 days or the prior week?
So each 14-day period has a start and an end. the one that we're announcing for Thursday of this week, October 1st, is from September 6th through September 19th. Automatically, when we're pulling the next numbers, we are losing that whole prior first week. So then the new dates will be from September 13th to September 26th. And it is specifically using the dates of testing. So it's not necessarily the date that it's being announced on the total count for Crow Wing County. It's based off of the testing date. So automatically those dates are shifting and data is being refreshed by those new dates. We're using the exact same standards that the state of Minnesota is using for reporting those numbers, using specifically the same dates, specifically the same population total, and also then the date that they're using to pull the data from, like being the date that the individual tested. So the numbers are dropping off from week to week, and we're looking at those 2 weeks specifically, where like the grand total of 555 positive cases has been since the beginning of April. And these are looking at the most recent 2-week period of times.
Michelle, at what number per 10,000 do you see this becoming a crisis again, like April or May? You must run those numbers.
Repeat the last part, please.
I'm wondering at what number per 10,000 that are positive, when will that become a crisis like it was in April and May?
April and May, what occurred there was to slow the spread of COVID. Certainly our case numbers here in Crow Wing County did not reflect a crisis. Are you referring to Minnesota or elsewhere?
Well, I guess I was comparing it to the state of Minnesota and not Crow Wing County. I was just wondering if, for us, what would that number be if we compared it to Minnesota?
Are you asking like at what point do we go 100% distance learning? Is it like that graph or that chart or?
Yes.
So like right now, in between a 10 and 20, it's a hybrid.
Oh, okay.
Option, and then 20 to 30 is another. So to go to 100% distance for all students is 50 per
50 per 10,000.
For 10,000.
Okay.
So in Crow Wing County numbers, that would be in a 2-week period of time that we would have gained 320 plus cases in that 2-week period of time, based off of Minnesota's Safe Learning Plan. We would need 320 cases in that 2-week period of time. So although our number does not look good right now at 170 for the current data that we have, we still have a ways to go to reach the distant learning number. However, my belief isn't so much that it's going to be around the case counts. It's going to be, do you have staff to operate your building? Do you have cleaning staff? Do you have your teachers? Do you have your food service providers? Or did we have a cluster within those groups that are going to prevent them from coming and serving our students? Less likely is it, to me, going to be about a total count or case count for the 14 days. It's going to be around not having adequate staff.
So Michelle, you kind of answered by saying currently it's 170. And then what I was wondering is, with your estimate on the 15th of going to 26, what?
And 26 is just a preliminary number. That is not the total amount at this. I mean, we still have more data to collect to give you a complete number.
Right, but I guess what I was wondering is how many of the current 170 will be dropping off?
For what will be reported on October 8th.
No, on the 15th.
One moment. The total number that are going to be dropping off on the 15th is roughly 80 cases. So already for that following period, the last that I ran the numbers last night, we have 102 at that point. I have 102 cases. I wish I could show you my screen here to show you we're tracking, by week, by the 2 weeks, and then giving preliminary data on what the cases are looking like. So the case number that's going to be reported several weeks from now, I already have 102 cases.
And of that 102, is that just going since last Thursday?
The 102 is from the 20th through October 3rd. So September 20th through October 3rd. So we have many, many more days worth of testing yet to add to that.
And the number is what? 102 or 120?
102.
So 102.
Okay.
But
I think I can help clarify for you. There's no dropping off. It's the number for that date range. So they wipe out all previous data. They're only looking at that week.
Right, you're looking at the last 14 days.
Right, but there's no dropping off.
Well, in order to do the calculation, you drop off though.
They're counting the number of cases based on test date from the period.
Right, but then when you advance another week, you drop off the other week.
Right, because you're looking at
Yep.
a different date range.
Yep, and that's what I'm trying to
Okay.
get a handle on, because we're gonna go from a little over 15 announced this Thursday to a projected 26 on the 15th.
Right.
And when we do that, there's 80 that are going to drop off that 170. And I'm just trying to find out
No.
how many are we adding already to this date? And it would have to be something under 7 days. It's got, I don't know what your cutoff date is, if it's Thursday to Thursday or Sunday to Sunday, whatever it is.
So for that date period, thank you, I understand your question a little bit more. As far as that data of 170 cases are 170 cases during that time frame. And your question about how many are going to drop off, 0 are going to drop off. These are the actual positive cases during that time frame from the 13th through the 26th, the 14-day window. So that's the actual case count.
It just hasn't been reported yet.
And we still have days to add to it. So 26 was the number where we were at when I pulled the information last night. So I still have pending data to add to this.
And that was from September 13th through the 26th, and you're still collecting some of that data even though we've passed the 26th.
Correct, because the 26th was a testing day. It's based off of the testing date, and we were getting tests today from the 26th, and generally I will get some stragglers that will come in and be reported tomorrow and the following day that were collected. The test was collected on the 26th. That's the measure on how these dates and case counts are collected.
I'm assuming the point from when a person tests and has a positive test to when they cycle through or run through the virus, it isn't a finite amount of time, correct? It might be different from person A to point B. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's varying from individuals having no symptoms to people being hospitalized.
And I can add to that with the conversation we had with Crow Wing County today, I believe. In talking with the families, because that's been my job, is to talk with all the parents and the students involved. It's exactly that. We have the range of one symptom that lasts for a couple hours, and we have another student that's down with multiple symptoms. We have a family where it's only the student. We have next family where the entire household is tested positive. We talked to a parent, the only reason they got the child tested is because they had family coming and they wanted to be proactive, and their child tested positive. She's showing no symptoms. So that's what's just so bizarre about the thing, and so that's why it's you can't point a finger at anybody's fault or where this cluster started. It's just that's what's happening. And again, the Department of Health really tagged us because we saw such an uptick so quickly, and that was the concern that we discussed right away with identifying this group and trying to control it as much as we could.
I have a question for Michelle. Michelle, how do you think the spread of the COVID is affected compared from being outside to being inside?
Could you hear that question, Michelle?
I couldn't. Heidi, could you repeat it for me, please?
Director Kern asked you, how do you think COVID's affected from being inside? The transmission of COVID is affected inside versus outside.
Indoors versus outdoors?
Correct.
Yes.
It's all about the proximity. Of course, there's benefits to having fresh air and good circulating air around individuals, but it's the proximity, the length of time that you're spending with an individual, and if that individual is exhibiting symptoms. But we've even learned, of course, with this virus, that individuals can spread the virus without having any symptoms or a couple of days prior to them having symptoms. It is, of course, better to have the fresh air and good air circulation.
And what about you talked about close proximity. What would that distance be and for what timeline?
Director Kern's question is, when you talk about close proximity, what is that distance and what is the timeline?
So what the standard has been is less than 6 feet from each other for more than 15 minutes. If you are less than 6 feet and spending more than 15 minutes with an individual that has tested positive, we would consider that person in close contact and then be recommending quarantine and testing.
Charlie, I don't
That's
know.
the best information we have from CDC at this point.
Can you ask Michelle if she knows the age breakdown of the current cases, like where the trends are age-wise?
Michelle, the question is if you know the current trends age-wise for the positive cases.
Yes, overall, for the 555 cases, I have been supplying the breakdown for that, and we can make sure that the school districts are getting that and sharing that out. In the last week here, we did have a large jump, of course, within our 0 to 18 range, with the majority of those being in the older teens, the 14 on up, and less likely in the 0 to 10 years of age. We also did have a jump in cases in our 50-year-olds as well. This virus does spread well, especially well at social gatherings, and so we've seen a number of positive cases with ties to other gatherings as well.
48.
Charlie, do you know if, so the fall sports that were put on hold, soccer, tennis, football,
Swimming.
swimming,
Volleyball.
Volleyball. Do we know if any of those athletes are they part of this positive tested group that we know of?
Not that I'm aware of. I believe there were some close contacts in at least one of our programs, and those students were basically quarantining at this point.
And then, if I understand correctly, the students that we do have that are tested positive, it's our belief that it's not due to, from what we can tell from the tracing, that it's not due to school activities.
That is correct. I mean, I think we've agreed from the beginning that our programs and our schools are very safe places to be, without question.
Questions or thoughts from board members?
One other comment I'd like to make, I would have to believe at this point that some of the higher level discussions between State High School League staff and Department of Health staff, I would say part of the concern being expressed by the High School League is having the ability to offer these programs, because in our absence, students will jump onto, or student athletes will jump into amateur associations and other opportunities where there are a lot fewer safeguards for them and for spectators and or family. And I know that that's going to have to be part of those discussions moving forward. And so again, that's just I think to reiterate that I believe that if we're going to offer these programs, it's better that we do it from a holistic approach rather than leaving it to an organization that maybe isn't bound by some of these same high standards that we are.
One thing that is I like to hold up as a particular strength about myself personally is my consistency. Even in my younger years, one could even consider that dogma. But through the years, my consistency has remained true, and I think it's made me a good friend, a good husband, a good dad, and hopefully a good board member. I believe, though, with the onset of COVID, in our calling as a board, but also as school administration and educators, that term consistency has proven to be a very subjective term, subjective meaning that different opinions can come into play in terms of what consistency means. And I really feel at this point in time in our community that we must not splinter as a community. We all are warriors. Every single one of us. And it's important that we make our concerns heard, that we have that dialogue. But after that, we have to fall in line with the leaders that we have in place. And I hope that that's what many take from this discussion, is that we're doing our best to have that conversation. I sure appreciate you all coming here, adding some light and some context to the situation. But in the end, it's important that I support all of you in the decisions that you make, as tough as they are, even as inconsistent it can seem, depending on one's paradigm or view of the world. We all are warriors. We all must continue to support one another, and in this situation, support our leadership with the trust that you're doing what's best for our students. As a board member, I commit that trust, and more importantly, as a father of 3 children in the school district, I commit that trust to all of you, and I appreciate everything that you've all done.
Thank you. I know too, Ruth had asked the question, what happens as far as our liability since the Minnesota Safe Learning Plan says that if we go into distance learning, that then extracurriculars are discontinued. And I did talk to legal counsel today, and he is available by phone if you want to hear from him. I just texted him a few minutes ago, and he's available. Or I can give you the rundown that I got from him as well, if you have a preference.
Is it possible to have a parent sign a release and then that alleviates the?
That would be a question for him.
Okay.
Do you have
want
any
me
more
to call
questions for Michelle, or can I?
No, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, so I'll call.
All right, while you're doing that, Lane, just a couple of comments that I've been thinking about. I appreciate, Charlie, what the Minnesota State High School League and the fact that they reinstated to get kids back in the school systems. And I personally think that is the right thing to do, because we've got an awesome team that's governing and making sure that our kids are safe under our own environments. We can't control what they do outside of school, but at least when they're under our umbrella, we can practice the safety. And I think even our governor I think that's why part of the reason why he allowed the districts to make the decisions. And I have an abundance of confidence in our leadership team to make sure that if we were to continue with in-school classrooms and all sports, that it's probably the safest and healthiest for our kids. And I've not received one single email or phone call or complaint from any parent, from anyone, complaining about why you're making our kids come back into school. In fact, our survey, when we did the survey, we roughly have about 85% that said, no, we want our kids back in school. And so I really struggle with, and I appreciate the guidelines from the MDH and et cetera, but I really struggle that it just, for me, it seems the safest that they're under our wings. And if you look at the cases in the cluster that we have right now, I wonder what would have happened if we even had more in-school activities and kids in class 100%. Maybe that wouldn't have happened. I don't know. But I'm more inclined to, we went into the hybrid model. We didn't have to. I think we took a cautious approach. We went into a reset, which last week we didn't have to, but I think we took a conservative approach. In hindsight, and I know I questioned it a little bit, I'm not so certain that as a board we did the right thing in passing the burden on to you, Superintendent Larson, of making that decision. I don't think that was perhaps right. I think that with these difficult decisions, certainly you're qualified to make those decisions, but to have to burden that yourself, I don't think it's right. I think that really should have come to the board to make any changes. But nonetheless, we gave you that authority, and we probably put you in a bad spot for that. And I think we want to be, just like MDH, they're going to want to be conservative. They're going to always want to try to exercise safety to the best we can. But who has the greatest influence over that? And we just have an amazing team of administrators and principals and staff and teachers and et cetera that can help with that. But beyond that, we have no control. And I'm more inclined to get us back into gear. There's risk, there's liability. We can get the attorney on the phone if we want, but for every parent, gosh, if they don't know by sending their kids into school there's risk, that would be a real concern. There just is that with this COVID disease going around. It's just a reality.
So what happens if and when other teams don't want to play us? Because they know that we're not following through on the safe learning plan. And we're not carrying that 2 weeks that we're in distance learning. And what happens if those teams don't want to play us because they're afraid that their kids may get something?
I think that's their risk. Again, we didn't have to go into distance learn, or the reset here per the guidelines. We didn't have to do that, but I appreciate that we're conservative in our approach. But we didn't have to per the numbers, per the guidelines that are out there, per the 10,000. We didn't have to, but we chose to, and I think that's fine. But that's.
Lane, why don't you share what our lawyer said, or if you'd rather have us?
It's up to you. I just asked, your question was what happens to our liability? And he said that, yes, it does raise our liability if we reinstate when we've been effective or efficiently told not to do so. And from a negligence standpoint, it could be the district breached a duty of care because we were given these guidelines and asked to follow them, and we didn't follow them. So that definitely could happen. There's no real cases at this point, though. If you got a lawsuit or whatever, what would happen? Because it's so unprecedented. There's just no evidence at this point what would happen. He did talk to me about a resolution if the board did decide to reinstate the extracurriculars, a resolution that to try to explain what the expectations would be, what some of the pros and cons would be and what some of the risks might be of doing that. But he did recommend that if that's the direction that the board decided to go. So I guess that's just most of it. I asked about insurance. Marcy checked with our insurance. Do you want to talk about that just a little bit?
So there is really no coverage for pandemic or virus. So when the attorney says that our liability would be more, it would all be on us. That would be our liability that we would be taking on. There is no policies out there that cover this.
I understand where you're coming from, Director Hagelin. I think when we look at the liability issue and insurance doesn't cover it, I don't know how we can take that risk. You know, if we got a big lawsuit and the school had to pay it out of the general fund. I mean, I want these kids back.
Well, currently we didn't have to do a reset, and we're still within the guidelines. So I don't know how an attorney.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
Because the guidelines that you repeat about the 10,000 is very different than why we reset. The recommendation to reset was from MDH because of the cluster and not being able to appropriately or 100% accuracy contact trace. Therefore, to reduce the spread of continued positive cases. So really, they're two very different things. Because the 10,000 is our overall model. We're still in the same model. We just temporarily went into distance for the high school due to the cluster. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Okay, thank you for that. What's the definition of cluster?
The outbreak that's occurring.
Say what?
The outbreak that's occurring, they saw a significant uptick in numbers within a certain age group within our district.
But I mean, what are
They're
the
all
numbers?
related.
What are the numbers? So I mean, it must be a number. It can't be.
So it started out at 2 and it's at what today, 21?
So if you look at this particular cluster within a group, it's gone from 2 to 21.
Right, but is that what they're saying is a?
So-
is that their definition of a
It's
cluster?
an identified group. So these positive cases were all related into a group of individuals, so it's associated.
If
So
there
I
were
guess-
3 people in a group, would that still be considered a cluster?
It depends on the spread.
And
So
the
what they're
size of
looking
the
at, they're looking at how quickly it's spreading within a group of people that they've known to been together, and where their recommendation to do the reset was because of contact tracing. So really trying to figure out who was in close proximity to those individuals who've tested positive. And that's when we talked to the epidemiologist from the Department of Health. She said, if you can't say with 100% certainty,
Well, that's a ridiculous 100% certainty.
and that's her guideline, because they can't. And so just that guideline that Michelle Moritz talked about, they're contact tracing 56 others who've been attached to this cluster as well. So it continues to have a ripple effect. So that was a recommendation of seeing this growing number, which every day we continue to see another student that was in this initial cluster test positive, as well as when you talk to their families. Many households are all testing positive within that family member or the family group. That was their suggestion, is you really can't limit it because of the spread of it right now. That's why they recommended the reset. So that was not from the case count. That was strictly from what was exactly happening within our group from the Department of Health.
And we have had, you referenced a number, a low number of positives in a different building. They never even said boo about it. They're like, yep, let's do our contact tracing. It's not related. It's not in a very specific cohort. If it was, so if it was 15 fifth graders, they might recommend that we look at something different for fifth grade, because those groups of kids are together. But, yeah, so I just wanted to clarify, because you're kind of putting that 10,000.
So as pointed out earlier, when we went to a reset, our education continued, obviously, having to do it online. Is there any kind of anything we can do, not a compromise, but within our sports, that if this football team or tennis team or soccer team, if there's no connection with any of those that have been tested positive, can that program be reinstated?
That's not what was recommended. That's all I could say, because we don't know if they were in contact. Actually, I think there was a couple of kids that are in these activities that were in close contact with the positive cases. They're choosing not to test and aren't displaying symptoms, but there were close contacts that are in these activities from this cluster already identified.
Isn't the reason why we reset, why it was recommended, was to help contain that outbreak, that cluster outbreak?
Yes.
So if we continue even a handful of activities while our reset, then to me, the reset would be for naught, because we're not containing that outbreak.
Assuming that those cluster of kids aren't hanging out during this 2 weeks, and other kids.
But in reference to the school property.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, technically, you don't really know if they are getting it from the kids at school. Maybe they got it at Walmart, or maybe they got it in a car ride where they went somewhere else with somebody, and you can't say that they're getting it from the kids at school.
Correct.
How are the parents feeling of the ones that have this COVID? Are they very concerned, or are they like,
I
they're
think,
fine?
again, I can only go off the conversations I've had with families.
Right.
A lot of them are apologetic. They're just so sad that it was their kid or their situation. So they just worry, because that's, like you said, there's a risk. But they know what's going to happen. I mean, that's the thing too. Like Director Hagelin's saying, this is a virus and people are going to get the virus. And it's very difficult, because I said there's a range. Some kids show nothing and test positive. Other kids are very sick and their households get sick. It's a whole spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I just don't feel like we can keep everybody home because some are sick. The sick ones stay home. Obviously, if they tested positive and don't have a symptom, they should stay home.
Yeah.
But we can't keep everybody home.
And that's why we're just doing a 2-week reset. We're just trying to slow it down, stop it, and then we're going to be back in hybrid, is what our hope and dream is.
I don't think these kids running around outside are going to get it from each other. They're not cuddling. They're running around with a ball. or whatever. There's usually a ball in there somewhere.
Well, not to get in, and I'll just make a quick comment, Chair Hagelin, is I think part of the issue, and I'm in no way a biologist when it comes to this type of matter, but I think part of the issue is we generally understand how this virus is contracted from one person to another, but yet the whole idea of a coronavirus is it's corona, it's brand new. So this whole thing continues to evolve as we move along, and we're just trying to catch up to understanding how it's passed. And we're using data to the best of our abilities to make those decisions.
And I truthfully think it's hard to keep teenagers apart from each other. I mean,
really,
so
they're gonna go
even
for a
in
ride.
sports or whatever, they're gonna, yeah, that's just the way they are, so. It's much easier for us to stay 6 feet apart than a bunch of teenagers.
Well, and if they're in school, they're staying 6 feet apart because we're making them.
You know,
Aren't they?
we're trying.
Their classrooms.
You're trying.
We're doing our best.
Yes.
Gotta get the wet noodle out.
Haven't used it yet, but.
All right, well, any
Charlie,
other-
what would the program look like then, a football program, say if it started in the 2 weeks then? Are we behind the 8 ball? Can we still get some games in and everything, or what?
Yeah, this really impacts each program differently because of the space that they're at in their season and what their respective postseasons look like. And so you asked specifically about football. If I can say with certainty, if we did not resume practice until the 7th, we would definitely lose one football game, our first one, and there would be no opportunity to reschedule that. We have normally an 8-game regular season. It's a 6-game regular season because all of our schedules all year long will be reduced. And we can kind of go down the list. Girls tennis will come back, and cross our fingers if the region on Wednesday accepts the proposed tournament, we would literally come back and jump right into our section tournament with 1 day of practice. Best case scenario, we might get a couple of days of practice. We would end seasons for some of our student athletes. Cross country would lose half of their regularly scheduled 6 meets. They would lose 3 of their 6. And the season would be over for all but 6 varsity boys runners and 6 varsity girls runners. Girls swimming would lose a couple of meets, including a home meet. They would have some time to swim and train and prepare for their section meet, which is a little bit later than some of the other sports. So again, your question's a little bit nuanced because every program's in a little bit different place, and that's one of the things that makes this a really, really emotional topic to talk about.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board?
Well, in answer to your question, Elaine, you brought up what if the other school or team doesn't want to play us? Well, then I guess we don't play because you can't play by yourself for a game. So we just wouldn't. They don't want to play with us, and we won't play with them.
There are provisions this year that any COVID-related cancellation or missed game is just considered a no contest. It's not a forfeit. I would say that as much as our coaches are advocating for jumping right back into their seasons, even just appreciating the opportunity to practice ahead of that 2-week return would be welcomed, just for the opportunity to connect with those kids. And again, I understand what I'm saying to you goes in direct opposition to the Department of Health, and I don't like that. That doesn't feel good to me. I'm not certain that you need to be in a position where it's all or nothing. And I guess that's what I'm trying to tell you.
I think what I remember hearing at the beginning of the school year or the weeks running up to it was, and I could be wrong, but I felt that what we were hearing from the community and parents in general of school, students that are in school, was the request for us to remain consistent. Whatever we go with, that we remain consistent. We have, and I believe we did that, and we're doing that. And I would encourage us to remain consistent, even though it's difficult and frustrating and even hurtful for some. That's understood. But I think we need to remain consistent on this with our approach. Where does it end? How, where do we start drawing the line here if we're not consistent?
I guess, that it just makes me think, when you look at these numbers that they're projecting in the next 2-week cycle, 15.19 and then 26, and then they're saying between 30 and 49. If we're put into distance learning, what happens then? Do we still have activities in sports if we're in distance learning then? We're just trying to follow the guidelines that have been set and to be consistent, like you said. Like I said at the beginning, this is one of the hardest decisions we've had to make, but it is part of what's going on right now. And our number one goal is to ensure the safety and the wellness of our children and our staff. And so whatever, I feel bad for you that you have to make a decision tonight. I think this is terribly difficult, but we will enforce and support the guidance that you give us.
Okay, is there any other comments? There is no board action unless someone makes a motion, but if I want to make sure everybody's been heard.
I haven't said much, but I liked what you said about consistency, and I am quite concerned about.
I can't hear you, what?
Oh. I like what Director Blackland said about consistency, and I am quite concerned about both our case numbers going up and our legal liability. We've all been on the board a long time, and I've never had to make, this isn't even a decision, well, it's a decision, anything this difficult, because I really want those kids to be able to go to practice at least. And I can see where teams might not want to play us, but I don't think liability-wise, it's where we can do it. And especially with our case counts going up. And the consistency is, yeah, we're following the guidelines we have from the beginning. We need to keep doing that. So that's my thoughts, and I ache for all those seniors out there. I really do. I'm sorry about that.
I want to see them all back in playing games and all the activities too, but again, stay consistent, stay with what the recommendations are. I've had the symptoms of the disease and stuff too, and it was no fun 3-4 days of it, and I don't want any of the kids, any of the coaches, any parents, any grandparents to get that illness and have that put on us and have some liability there. So I think, again, stay consistent, and then my wife's a nurse. She'd be mad if I went the other way too and didn't follow science. So I feel we got to stay the course.
Okay, anything else?
I think that we should let the kids that are outside play, have them sign a waiver. Doesn't that cover liability if they sign a waiver? I mean, when I went in and got my pedicure done, I had to sign a waiver to have my pedicure done. If I get COVID after I'm in there getting my pedicure, it's not their fault. I'm on for this. I get her done.
And maybe that's something in the future. We wouldn't get a waiver document agreed upon between now and the 7th of October.
Okay.
Anyway, highly unlikely.
I think that if we, and I mean this with the utmost respect, Sue, I think if we have to do a waiver for something, then we're doing, at least in this regard.
Okay. Anything else? Any other comments? Thank you, team, for staying on top of things. I know it's tough. We'll stay the course.
Thanks for all you do.
Okay, we're gonna move into informational. I don't know if Director Murtha took a nap, or are you still with us, Tim?
Evening was made for us.
Bring us back to life.
Hey, John.
My coffee's paying off, though. Might not go to sleep until 2 a.m. tonight.
Because you personally asked for a long presentation, I'm now ready. I really have no full curriculum report for you any more than what I've shared in the last couple of presentations with Dr. Hahn. I do want to clarify one piece of information that seems to persistently be a source of confusion, and we apologize for the confusion. There's a difference between synchronous scheduling and synchronous learning. Synchronous scheduling is the core of our plan. It means that the student has the same classmates and the same teacher regardless of which mode we are in, whether it's in person, hybrid, or distance. And as we move back and forth, that's the continuity we're trying to preserve. Synchronous learning is when a student is engaged with the teacher while his classmates or her classmates are simultaneously engaged with the teacher, and the student can engage with them. So that's when you have that scheduled block of time, everyone's logging in. The challenge for us is we're doing a very good job of preserving the synchronous scheduling. We've created the systems and structures necessary at each level. And because each level is different, they look a little different. Synchronous learning is a much more challenging thing to provide. I would like to say that we're doing exactly, it's unfolding exactly the way we thought it would in August when these plans were originally made. The challenge for us is many of our families are unable to or unwilling to join our teachers when they schedule the synchronous learning. So that teacher, particularly when they're in the hybrid models, and there is a distance learning component, are not just preparing for in-class with distant participants, which is 2 preparations. They're now doing the third one. They're also preparing for someone who may be trying to or have to participate outside of that schedule. And so we're not getting as much synchronous learning as we thought we would at this point. We're still pushing, we're still trying, we're still tweaking what we do, we're still solving big problems and little problems. Little problems. Don't walk away from the mic when you're teaching. Okay, larger problems. I haven't heard from you for 4 days, and the collaborative worker has called you, the principal has called you, and we're not getting anything back. Those sorts of details are creating quite a burden on certain levels or certain teams of our distance learning teachers because they're spending an immense amount of time chasing. So we need to communicate better. We need to hold some people accountable. We need to not deviate from the plan, but we do have some work that we need to do on the synchronous learning portion of this. The synchronous scheduling portions actually worked out quite well for us, particularly at the middle school level. That's all I wanted to clarify. I hope that clarifies.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, because we've gotten questions about that.
Yes, you have, and so have we, and we appreciate the questions, because the questions are what we're looking for. That's engagement. There's some scenarios that systemically teaching and learning can't address unless the concern is shared. Now, to be clear, just to remind the universe, when a concern in a classroom arises, there is a chain of command and a protocol to use. A parent or a guardian should always contact the teacher first. 99% of all concerns usually are resolved by a conversation between the teacher and the family. And if after that point there isn't an appropriate resolution, that next step is to contact the principal of the school. And from there to work their way up, either to myself or to Dr. Hahn, and eventually up to Superintendent Larson. But we're happy to answer the questions. We'll keep working the issues. And I believe fervently that what we're doing today, September 28th, is much better than what we did on September 9th. And it will continue to improve. Again, I will stick to my guns on, we don't have a problem we can't solve, given enough time to solve it.
Good. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that.
Any further questions from the board?
I apologize I didn't catch you before the meeting on this, and I don't want to in any way put you on the spot. But how, in regards to fifth grade, again, my daughter is a fifth grader, have you had a chance to make it back over there? How do you feel the cafeteria setting is working on it every other day, or however they have it set up? How do you feel that's going?
I have not been back since the first concern was shared, at least for an extended period of time. I've walked through it on my way to other things in Forest View, and at that point it always looked like it's structured, it's engaged. I'm always impressed by how on task students appear to be. As a former high school teacher, I would have had my doubts on the ability of the system to generate the kind of independent stamina that it requires in order to execute that. But every single time I've been there on the small checks of late, the larger one, as you know, a few weeks ago, the stamina appears to be there, and it appears to be growing. You know, I see students raising their hand and asking for help when they need it. I see students who are in small groups with adult support, who are working socially distanced but are collaborating. My conversations with the teachers are they're getting better at refining their assignments and pushing out authentic work for them to independently do. So I feel good about where it is. I think that of all the options, it's possibly the best option that we have on the table for what we're trying to do in keeping students in our buildings at this time.
I think personally, my wife will joke that if someone moves my cheese, I have a difficult time with that. If a process where I have to change a bit. I'll admit that some of the students may take some time for them to adjust with this process. But for what I'm seeing with my own child is that ability to adjust coming quite naturally. And I'm pleased to see that, and I hope other parents have similar experiences. And quite honestly, in the end, I think as an educational institution, we want to provide our children to learn different ways to learn.
Yes.
And this is definitely doing that. It's been thrust upon them, but I felt pretty good with where it is so far.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I will pass that on to the fifth grade team.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Business service report, Marcy.
So in your packet is the financial report. The only thing I'm going to note is general fund is similar to last month, where it's just timing of payments of why it's down. Fund 2 is similar to last month. We are spending less money on food with what's in store or in the warehouse somewhat. We can't use all the potatoes. And community service fund is down as well with no programs running, or most of the programs not running, excuse me. And the construction fund is, the August payments were $19.20 because they were actually from June, so they were coded back as well. Any questions on that? Otherwise, there is the enrollment report. I promised that we would update that as of today. We are down 136 from budget. Didn't change a whole lot from the last board presentation, and then our starting point last year was 6,522. Just as a point of reference. And then we are at 1,160 distance learners, K-12.
1,160 it was?
Correct. Any other questions?
Marcy, speaking of being down, I know you're down staff in your department.
Yes.
And just with everything going on, a tremendous heavy burden workload on you and on your department. but also knowing that we're in our next fiscal year and we have our lovely audit that needs to be happening. What are your thoughts with that? I think typically we're in that like October, November-ish when we look at the audit for, final year.
We are scheduled to be, the audit is scheduled for October 19th, so Tammy and I are working away. We are still keeping that on our schedules. We're not changing that. We had interviews for the business services specialist position last week, and we continue those this week. So hopefully we can get that position in and filled so that we would have some extra help there as well.
Okay, but you're scheduled with CL on the 19th already, okay.
Yep, exactly.
Great, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Superintendent's report.
Keep it really short. It was really appreciated having the board candidates come here tonight.
It was
just
fun.
to see who they are and what their passions are and how they would fit with the team. I also want to say thank you for everyone for coming to the groundbreaking of the Warrior Early Learning Center. I don't know, there was something special about it today that I thought was kind of neat, doing it right in the middle of a construction zone and stuff. Just a couple of things. The Equity Advisory Task Force will be Tuesday, October 6th. We're going to have our next meeting. We're going to have to do a Google Meets because of the parameters within our buildings, but I think that we've got a good agenda again. Tim's going to take us through some of the data, and we'll continue to get going from there. And everything else, I think you can just read through either on the memo from me or it's in the board packet. So that's my report.
Chair Hagelin, quick question. With the, on October 6th is the school board candidate forum out at the Woods Event Center. Are we able to go to that, or do we have a quorum and then we're not able to go?
We have to advertise it if there's going to be a forum there.
This is new to me, being on this side of it. Is it something that I would like to go?
What is it? Virtual?
No, it's both. It's streamed online, plus you can be in person, but you do have to RSVP if you're going to be in person.
Okay.
So a quorum would be 4, right? So Sue and I are going to be there for sure.
Yeah.
Yep, there's 2.
Yeah.
It might not hurt just to advertise it as a special board meeting that the board could be together at it.
Is it online through the district website streamed, or where is it streamed online? Do we know that?
It's through the Women's League of Voters or something like that.
Is it in the chamber?
Huh?
The chamber.
In the chamber too, yeah.
And then I know that you're not the facilitator of it, or I assume that. Are board members?
I'm not.
Are board members able to ask questions and that type of thing, or do we gotta just not, or?
I think you can submit them.
I think you can submit them even now. And then they'll pick some or whatever.
And who's putting that on?
I can find that out for you though, Charles.
That'd be great.
Can you give me a hint now what the question is?
Oh, that's right. Well, Twinkies, I can get bought off with Twinkies.
No donut.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm supposed to stay away from donuts.
Okay, well, thanks for bringing that up, because I think I don't think we'd want to, let's not advertise it as a special meeting, because it isn't, but however we have to word it, there could be a quorum there.
There could be a quorum at it.
I was slapped before by attending at the high school once.
I remember that, that's why I
And
asked.
you were there for how many minutes? I mean, because when I walked in, you were already leaving, so you were there 15 minutes maybe?
Yeah, whatever, but, so, okay, is there anything else to come before the board?
I move to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you. Thanks for the extra long night.
Yeah.